70% of us told you fuck no on that settlement, on that agreement that you brought forward.
That's right.
And you looked at the membership, said, fuck you, I'm doing it anyways. So my question is, and I'm not asking you to do this, I'm asking this question. Will you, as a man with dignity, resign as the president, or will you force the membership to drag you out?
No, I'm not going to resign, and what you just said is not true.
Letter carriers say they've been working for more than 500 days without a contract, and today they made their voices heard on the streets of downtown.
USPS failed to protect Eugene Gates and others.
Can't take it no more.
Mail carrier robbed at gunpoint.
Police are targeting these mail carriers for their universal keys.
Nearly 1,200 reported attacks and other assaults on postal workers just last year alone.
Next Generation Carriers and guests are individual union members speaking in a personal capacity, and they do not represent the views of the NALC, the United States Postal Service, or any other entity that has spoken on this program. If you would like to get in contact with the Next Generation Carriers podcast, send us an email at nextgenerationcarriers@gmail.com. If you're a branch president and want to be part of a monthly Next Generation Carriers roundtable with co-host James Capone, please reach out to us. Make sure to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and also on YouTube and Facebook, Next Generation Carriers. My name is John Murphy. I'm a city letter carrier out of Naples, Florida, branch 4716, and I'm also on the steering committee of the Bill of Fighting NALC reform movement. I'm joined today with co-host James Capone. James, want to introduce yourself?
My name is James Capone. I'm an 18-year letter carrier, president of branch 764 in Dedham, Massachusetts.
My name is Elliot Simmons. I am the co-host for On the Workroom Floor. I'm also a letter carrier as well as a Formula A representative up in North Dakota.
Mike Cariff. I'm the national business agent in Region 3, which is the state of Illinois.
Cool.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you for coming on, Mike.
We'll quickly jump over to Elliot. If people haven't seen the video yet, Elliot Simmons was the one that politely asked President Brian Renfroe to step down. Elliot, do you want to talk about this?
Well, I didn't ask him to resign. I asked him to make a choice. He could either step down with dignity, like he needs to, or we could just drag him out. And, I mean, he made his choice. So, like, that day, I was already angry before he even got there. I didn't even know he was going to be there. So we had a little training. It's at Region 7. We're in Minneapolis. I was already arguing with some people about some stuff. Someone posed a question about defending a carrier that did something that's what they consider to be stupid. And one of the facilitators during the steward training was like, would anyone here actually defend someone who does something like this? And I jumped in. I was like, yes. I fucking will. And he got all uptight. And, you know, they're stupid. You know, you shouldn't be doing this. It's frivolous. You're supposed to have a good working relationship with management. And I'm just like, if one of my brothers or sisters is getting attacked by management, I'm jumping in and I'm going to defend them.
And Elliot, without knowing the case, I'm going to say this, like, isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? We're part defense attorneys, basically. You are trying to help all your carriers to say, pick and choose who gets to decide.
Exactly. You know, the particulars of the case is someone asked, how do I defend someone who wasn't wearing a seatbelt? And the question was asked, would anyone here defend someone who wasn't wearing a seatbelt?
Yes.
Yes.
Of course.
We would. That's our job. And it turned into a little back and forth. At the end, he apologized and he called me his friend. I'm like, you're not my friend, you're my brother, but that's all right. But then later on, we had this little open house thing, and we're talking about, and it comes up again, and he brings it up. And he refers to Mike, who he knows who was my previous NBA, because I'm in Region 7, I used to be in Region 3, as a little hoodlum. And it says, I'm just like that little hoodlum. And I'm just like, damn, bro.
So because the carrier's having a bad day and doesn't wear their seatbelt, or who knows, they're rushing by accident, they just got a call from their wife and they don't put their seatbelt on. Mistake, absolutely. Always wear your seatbelt. We're not going to defend them and let them go because they didn't wear their seatbelts.
Well, it's even crazier because he moved the goalpost when we were arguing initially, because it went from not wearing your seatbelt to dealing crack cocaine on the route. Which is like, they're like, let's just keep moving this forward. We're going to let the carrier murder.
And again,
somebody.
another
come on, man.
A bad
We're
thing.
talking about a seatbelt.
Even in dealing crack on your route.
I'm still going to grieve the discipline.
Another
I'm still going to try to
thing.
fight it. It's my job.
But to try to compare the two, and then even then, the person that's selling crack cocaine on the street, aren't we supposed to try to defend them, get them to go to a service, get them better, and get them their job back? Aren't we supposed to be defending people?
Wait,
exactly.
I have a question. So I'm just a city levy carrier. So you were at a training, and the NALC president is trying to influence stewards and others
to
try to not
a facilitator, a trainer.
One of the trainers.
He's a retired NBA of this region.
Okay, but someone with
that's not Renfroe. He
but
training people.
I'm saying though, someone with a title at a training is trying to influence people not to defend someone with.
Yes, and it's funny because we went back and forth. He's like, "Well, if you did that, I wouldn't defend you," and I'm just like, "If you wouldn't defend me, I'd file a labor charge against your ass." And he's like, "You file a labor charge over that?" Yes, I would file a labor charge over that because that's the union's job.
That's absolutely.
He's telling me these things like when he was the NBA. You know, he had these backdoor deals with management, and they had good working relationships, and he would withdraw that and let you be fired.
The working relationship thing, we've all, as reps, we've heard this, but the idea of it is that we're not causing issues that can lead to what's happened in Royal Oaks, Michigan. It is supposed to be more of a situation where we are working together instead of completely against and get it to be aggressive. That's the idea. Not we give them whatever the hell they want because we're friends. That is insane.
Right. Yeah. I will work with my counterpart, but I'm not making backdoor deals that's going to lead to my brothers and sisters being fired or harmed in any way. Like, fuck that.
I know that wasn't the point
That's
of the story.
family. You don't fuck with my family like that. Fuck you.
I know that wasn't the part of your story, Elliot, but
I apologize.
That just drove me so effing crazy to hear.
I apologize for cursing. I'm going to curse a lot.
No,
just
curse
like I do on video.
That drives me crazy.
But, so I was already angry from that, right?
Understandably. It's very understandable. Like,
I'm angry now.
Anyone with...
So, the last day, Brian Renfroe was supposed to come and be a speaker. All it said was national representative. I didn't know who we were getting. I'm surprised we got Renfroe. I thought for sure maybe we'd get Manny Peralta or someone like that. But no, we got the big guy. And comes up and he's giving his old spiel and he's trying to sell the bullshit to the membership. And some of them are eating it up because, that's just who they are. But I'm just sitting there, I'm like, fuck this guy. This guy's trying to sell us bullshit and try to say he did a good job when he didn't. So I looked at a couple people and said, hey, I want to say something. And I looked at one of the guys that I'm pretty good friends with. His name's Don. And I said, Don, if they kick me out, please record it. Because I want this to be on record. So if you haven't watched the video, I asked him to make a choice. He can either step down with dignity or we're going to drag his ass out. And it turned to an argument, and I didn't even realize until I re-listened to the video, because I listened to it, that he insulted my intelligence. That he says, oh, you don't know stuff about the contract to talk about this stuff. And I'm just like, motherfucker, I've filed more grievances than you. I guarantee it. I don't know how much time he spent on the workroom floor, but it wasn't much. If he doesn't realize that management takes every opportunity they can to abuse our members, because that's what they do. And he's just so fucking out of touch. It's just ridiculous. He got into his feelings too. And I definitely made note of that because I'm just like, I've heard some recordings of people arguing with him and he never reacted like this. So obviously I must have pinched a nerve.
I have people in my office that have never done anything towards the union, but they're talking about this. And it's actually motivating them to be like, things are possible. Like, The establishment, the status quo is just crumbling right now. It's very fragile. So I salute you. I remember when Renfroe was on this podcast and people were telling me to cool it down. And I was like, I have nothing to lose. Like, the future for us as city letter carriers is very bleak. And everyone that has gave us these shit contracts need to be held accountable. So I thank you.
No, I mean, he's actually kind of lucky that my NBA, Patrick Johnson, stopped the argument and said, Elliot, you go ahead and sit down. Because I would have argued with him for hours. Because fuck him. He argues like management. That's what it comes off as. When I deal with management, that's how I argue, right? I put out the points. I say, no, this is bullshit. Prove your point. You didn't prove your point, motherfucker. You're lying to me. And I hate that shit. But
hey,
yeah,
Elliot,
no.
is that quote? It's in the chat. Rick put it up. It's obvious you don't have the contractual knowledge to have this discussion. Was that the exact words?
Yeah.
Yes,
I knew
he
it was
did.
something like that.
Oh yeah, that was his point. Like, oh,
I couldn't believe
you don't
he
know
said
what you're
that.
talking about. You don't have the intellect to talk about. Fuck you.
He said you don't have the intellect. I
I
was
don't
trying
have
to
the
figure out
intellect.
what the exact words were.
Yeah,
It was
right, that's exactly what
Contractual
Brian said.
knowledge is what he said, but I think Elliot's trying to say related to the intelligence to have the argument.
Well, what's crazy is contractual knowledge. I mean, every member gets a vote on the contract. That's the whole point of having a TA and then having a vote on it. And you know, I know Elliot a long time. Elliot's obviously a little bit above your average letter carrier as far as ability to have a decent contractual discussion. And if he thinks that Elliot doesn't have the contractual knowledge to have that type of discussion, then what does he think about your average member of the NALC? You know?
Well, the idea would be nobody does, right? Only a few select chosen few.
Oh, exactly. I mean, you know, I've been saying it for a while. It seems to me like certain people want to guard the information from the general carriers, and it pisses me the fuck off.
Yeah.
I have carriers now. They'll still call me and say, you know, I called my steward. I asked for an explanation. They didn't tell me anything. Can you please explain this to me? I'll point them in the JCAM where to find it. Because that's what you do. You help them out. They need to learn. If they know what's going on, they can help you with grievances. That's why you need to educate your membership.
Well, yeah, you're right, Elliot. I mean, even NELC wise, like we've talked about before, and what the plans are for the future. What do they have to train the average union member? They have stuff for us reps up to a certain level that you can go to locally, but anything to help these carriers learn how to carry the job, especially when they're pushing them through the OJIs as fast as they can, get them out in the street. Where's the NLC to teach them the right way there? The contract, informational things, videos, nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, to finish my portion of this off, unless people have questions, I can't tell you the number of like higher level stewards and, you know, people who are respected that have reached out to me and told me I fucked up and that I shouldn't be going against the machine. And I'm saying, fuck that. I want to do what I want to do. You're not going to deter me from fighting back and telling them that they fucked up. It's my right as a carrier to tell the guy who works for us that he fucked up. And then on the flip side, I've had so many fucking messages. I have like 37 people add me on Facebook, all which saying the same message. Thank you. Good roast. Way to fucking go. Please do it again. If I do it again, I'd definitely do it again if I have the opportunity. But
yeah, I'll jump in real quick because it's very relatable. Because when Renfroe was on my podcast here that night, even like during the Zoom chat, people were like, "Holy shit, dude! Like, great job roasting the dude." And then like I log off this thing, my Facebook is like, "You have 45 new friend requests." I'm like, "Holy shit!" Then people are like, "Dude, you're completely blacklisted." I was like, "Hey, man, I'm already blacklisted on local level. I have nothing to lose on a national level at this point." But
So
no,
I've
like,
used sorry.
no, Elliot has a podcast called On the Workroom Floor. There's like 11 episodes. They're very basic, informational, educational episodes. And as Elliot's getting hate from other people, other stewards, or whoever was messaging you, it's like, this is the type of platform that people should be using. Like every branch should have a podcast or a Discord where like the president or the steward could just answer questions right away. And like, you see the common questions all the time with CCAs, like, do I have a grievance after 60 hours? Do I have a grievance after 12 hours? Like, do I get a break? Like, these types of things could be answered on a podcast format. And Elliot's over here on his free time doing the shit. And now he is getting hated on because our national president hated on all of us. So I salute Elliot. He's got my support.
So Elliot, if you could ask one question that he had to answer completely truthful, what's the one question you would ask Renfroe that he had to answer no lies, straight truth?
Oh God! All right, I'm just gonna say it. Is there a backroom deal for you to get a job when you get fired? That's the answer I think most of the membership want to know. That's what I want to know.
Because today the Royal Carriers just got their contract and it was identical to us.
Yeah,
1.3, 1.4, 1.5. So clearly the suits and ties above us are definitely making backroom deals.
Well, it's tough because they always use our standards on them. And then at the same time, we're not fighting for a better contract, which kind of screws the rule and then screws the clerks because they all end up, the letter carriers took 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. You can't ask for 6. You got to take what they took. And then they can use that in arbitration. So those unions are kind of stuck to what we got as the best thing. And if we're not fighting enough, everybody gets screwed.
All right, cool. Thank you, Elliot. I guess we could jump over now to the hot topic. Mike Cariff updating the membership on what is going on with the National Association of Letter Carriers on the headquarters level.
All right. Hey, first thing I want to say is I cannot wait till we get to the point where we have a union where discourse is welcomed, disagreements are welcome, where we share information, and the people that we're looking to put into positions of leadership are not the people that agree with us, but the people that, maybe disagree, or the people that have a record of success, based on their skill level and based on their passion and dedication to the letter carriers. We got a long way to go, man, because there's just too many political appointments. We saw when President Renfroe became the president, he immediately fired 2 people as RAAs that had run against the ticket in the election. That type of stuff is just uncalled for and should not be part of our union. And those are things we're going to have to change once we get some new leadership up in there. So the hoodlum thing, that's I know exactly who Elliot is referring to. There's the former business agent in Region 7. He used to call me the hoodlum. I thought it was kind of a term of endearment, but it was based on a few discussions we used to have about our approach to grievances. And he thought my approach was kind of like a hoodlum approach. And, I disagree with his approach. But anyway, we have a good relationship and we have those discussions. But I think if you're representing the NALC in training, I think you have to teach that we're there to uphold the terms of the contract. And the specifically Article 16 is not about what did you do. It's about did the post office, well, that's the first step. What did you do? But then you have due process, and then you have, did they treat you fairly? The test of just cause. And if we're teaching something else officially, as official NALC training, that's a problem.
Sad, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, that ain't the way it's supposed to go.
Yeah, if that's not what's being treated, how are people being defended? If they're not training people to do that, that is what happened, and the case was, again, without looking at the full case, we don't know the situation.
Well, it doesn't matter what it was. It's like,
no, you're right.
That position was that, and I know this because I had these discussions with that person, and it was always like, you would defend that person, kind of same thing Ellie was saying. I'm like, of course, first of all, they're members of the union. I mean, everyone deserves a defense. Now, whether we're successful or not, I don't know, but I'm going to apply the contractual standard of just cause to the fact circumstances of what happened. And maybe the brother and sister comes out okay, and maybe they don't, but I'm going to try. We're going to do our job.
Any union rep that would say you defend that person, that's insane. They shouldn't be union reps then. Yes, that's our job, is to defend them. Even if you personally don't like the person, you are to give them the greatest defense you can. That is
absolutely
insane.
Absolutely. Matt, I want to say welcome, brother. He put a comment in the chat about me coming out to Branch 43 in Cincinnati last week. I have been doing the world tour. I got Mount Clemens, Michigan coming up on Tuesday. I know they're going to put out information for any carrier in the Detroit area that wants to come out and hear me speak or ask any questions that they want to ask. They'll have that opportunity to do so on Tuesday. One last thing, comment on what we were talking about earlier. That pattern has been a problem for letter carriers and for everyone else in the Postal Service, but much more so for us. Because if you look at the postal workers, I mean, there are crafts, I think, you have truck drivers is kind of a high level, tractor trailer operator, as far as wages, is a high level position. Mechanics are unionized. And then you have some tradespeople, within the Postal Service, and they're at a high level as far as monetary. But if you're looking at like clerks and mail handlers and custodians and rural carriers and all that, their wages should not be the same as the wages of letter carriers, city letter carriers. We're the face of the organization. And quite frankly, if you look at our contract versus rural carriers, there's a reason why you pay rural carriers less. First of all, the Postal Service has a higher expense in the rural areas, and the workers who are rural carriers have a lower expense because of the cost of living in the rural areas. So it's logical that they would make less money than us. So the fact that they're getting the same amount of raise as us is not a good thing at all. And we really need to figure out, and President Renfroe had indicated he was going to try to do this when we began negotiations in 2023, which is to separate city letter carriers from the other crafts, kind of like we did in 1999 with the Fleischle, where we separated ourselves from the clerks and we went up a level. But, we had just worked through the pandemic. The job has gotten more dangerous. We're out on the street a lot longer. UPS drivers who are comparable to us had just gotten these, these big raises in 2023. There's just a lot of reasons why the city letter carrier should have been able to separate themselves. We should have been able to separate ourselves from the other crafts. And we see that didn't happen. And, now you're going to get these standard contracts and patterns, and we're kind of keep digging ourselves into this hole.
And didn't we need to separate? At some point, we were making more than the clerks to start and everything. And then at some point, they've caught up to us where they're making more than us to start. After the Fleisch Award, we were noticeably making a difference more than the clerks, enough that it recognized us for our work.
You know why? Because they don't have a prorated COLA. That's why the COLA amount is applied at all steps. So the lower step for the clerk, level 5 clerk, has gone up in comparison to the step A letter carrier or whatever.
Yeah, and it's just going to keep getting further apart when they're still getting the prorate and they're still getting the 1.3, 1.4, 1.5.
Right.
How much more are they making than our starting carriers?
Well, right now they're at $27.28. We're going to be close to $26 after the like this summer when step B becomes the starting pay, and when we get the new COLA, and then we'll get another 1.5% raise in November. So it'll be.
But they're getting the full COLA where
26.
the people. They're getting the full COLA where the people at the bottom are only getting 60%.
But I was going to say it still won't even make it to 27.28 even after all that stuff. And 2027.8 was as of last summer for them when their contract expires. So as soon as they get another contract, they'll go up from there as well. So anyway, that's some of the issues. So what you guys wanted me to talk about, because I could talk contract for like, man, I could talk contract forever. I got a lot of opinions and a lot of information about it. But what happened, we had an executive council meeting. Brother Michael Rivera from Branch 70 in San Diego has submitted charges against President Renfroe and Executive Vice President Paul Barner. Those charges been shared. I don't know if everyone has seen them, but it should be easy enough for you guys to see what those charges were about. So the executive council meeting was a WebEx meeting, which a lot of these are, and it gets a little, it gets hard to have. I see Murphy posted the PDF of the charges, so it gets hard to have a legitimate discussion over WebEx. And I've mentioned it a couple of times to President Renfroe that look, we really need to have an in-person meeting where you pass out documents or you share something up on the screen and you have a legitimate discussion. But sometimes the executive council meetings are just being called for whatever purpose, whatever agenda President Renfroe has, and that's the reason why he calls the meeting. So they called back. They called for the meeting. We got about maybe 24 hours notice. 2 people were not on the meeting because I guess it wasn't enough notice or they were on leave or whatever. But 26 of us were on the meeting, and so Paul Barner, the executive vice president, begins talking because the bulk of the charges against President Renfroe, and he's explaining to us why he feels that the charge is not appropriate. And he had a couple arguments there that may be legitimate. If you present a charge the way the Constitution is read, it's a charge against an officer, and there's a threshold issue there, and the threshold is only that the allegation, and it doesn't, obviously you don't have to prove your charge when you make it, but that the allegation represents a violation of the constitutional duties of that officer and or negligence in how they carried out their duties. So as long as you meet that threshold, and there's an allegation of either one of those two things, then the next sentence in the Constitution is that an investigator will be appointed. And so if the charge is against the president, then an investigator will be appointed by the executive vice president. If the charge is against the president and the executive vice president, the investigator will be appointed by the vice president. And Vice President James Henry had sent an email previous in that day saying he was going to appoint Pete Moss, a former business agent in Region 8, as the investigator. And the response he got back from President Renfroe was, "Hey, we're going to talk about that at this meeting." So we kind of knew that it was going to be some something from there. So the one thing that may or may not be legitimate, I thought, from the executive vice president was that there was a series of charges, and charge number 2 and charge number 3 were just very similar, if not identical, but they were substantially similar to the charges that I and a bunch of other people had brought forward back in October. And there was an investigator who was appointed, Matty Rose. He did an investigation. It wasn't a thorough one per se. He didn't draw a lot of conclusions, establish a lot of facts, but hey, we followed the Constitution. There was an investigator, and then the executive council took the next step in that case and said that those charges were not substantial. So if these charges are basically the same, I could see somebody saying, look, we went through that process already. We're not going to just go through the same process every single time for the exact same charges. That part made sense. But other charges in there were either new things that happened or allegations that had not been presented before. And the basis is just an allegation. And so allegation means investigator. That's what the Constitution says. And so they made the argument why these charges were not valid. And for example, on the one charge, which is probably to me the most kind of the charge everyone wants to hear more about, and that charge is that President Renfroe he entered into a mediated settlement. And per the terms of the Constitution, if we have a mediated settlement, it should go out like a tentative agreement for ratification. And I think somebody brought up at the last committee of presidents meeting that, hey, if you had a mediated settlement during the 60-day period after the contract expires, if you had a mediated settlement there, you would have sent it out for ratification. And after the TA is voted on, if you would have had an agreement with the Postal Service a second time, that would have gone out for ratification. So why is this thing not going out for ratification? And, President Renfroe's response is because it was an arbitration award. And that's the question. Is it an arbitration award? What part was arbitrated and what part was mediated? I mean, there were no witnesses, there were no hearings, there were no presentations of fact. In what way was this arbitration hearing? You're not going to know the answer to that until you get an investigator who's going to ask those questions and you're gonna find out some more. Nolan himself called it 2 days of mediation. He said it was a mediated award. So anyway, on that charge, the statement was made that that's okay because the executive council had voted previously to allow the president, or to encourage the president, you could say, to hold expedited arbitration. And I can tell you, one, that's argument. So all you need is an allegation to get an investigator. You don't argue it out or say what your opinion is. You just say, okay, we'll see what the investigator comes up with. So the fact that that's argument is not appropriate at this time, but it's not even factual. I mean, the motion that was made by the executive council prior to the expedited arbitration was that we were going to try to shorten the time frame. We were going to try to expedite the arbitration process, but it was definitely going to be an arbitration process. Like, we were going to put our positions on the table, and President Renfroe even said that we would be present at those arbitration hearings when they took place, whether they were expedited or whatever. It's just a format of how you have arbitration. In no way, shape, or form was anyone on the executive council at that time saying that we were going to agree to a mediated award and not put up a fight regarding our issues. And so anyway, at that point, Brother James Henry spoke, I spoke, I don't remember, maybe a couple other people spoke, but basically, I called for a roll call vote, and I told them, I said, I want to know who is going to violate the terms of the Constitution here. And I told them, I said, we're going to have an election in 2026, and I do not think you should be a member of the executive. It's just my opinion. Every member gets a vote. I don't think you should be on the executive council if you're not willing to uphold the Constitution of the National Association of Letter Carriers. And by this time, everyone on the executive council has had plenty of time to read the Constitution. Like, we're more contractual experts, especially the business agents. Like, you don't deal with the Constitution on a regular basis, but I got mine right here. Like, I carry it with me at all times now. There are a lot of constitutional questions that have come up over the past couple of years. And if you're on the executive council, you know exactly what that Constitution says. And so I called for a roll call vote, and they went to vote on it. James seconded the motion, and they go to kind of vote on it. I'm like, hey, why are we voting on this? Let's just have a roll call vote. What is all this secrecy? Why shouldn't the members of the union know exactly how a person who's representing them is voting? But they said, no, we're gonna have a vote on it. I said, okay. And to my surprise, they voted in favor of the roll call vote. I was like, wow, that was a shocker, because up until, it was close. You couldn't really tell over WebEx, like ayes and nays, and but a few people definitely said aye, that they wanted to have a roll call vote, or they approved of the motion to have a roll call vote. And President Renfroe said, hey, I think the ayes have it. And so we ended up having a roll call vote. So we went person by person, and everyone voted on the motion. And the motion was whether or not we were going to send a letter back to the charging party, which is Mr. Rivera and people that he works with, I think, in Branch 70 in San Diego. And, that the letter was going to indicate why the charges were not proper at this time, which, I thought was bullshit in the first place. But it was kind of weird, like, that we were approving a letter that had not been written. Like, you haven't even seen the language in this letter before the executive council went ahead and approved it. So we went ahead and voted. There was 2 people missing, like I said. They were on leave. Patrick Johnson was at the Region 7. I don't know, whatever you guys had that evening. You guys in Region 7 would know better than me. He was not on. And Chris Jackson was...
Oh, my goodness. Come on, let's go.
Come on, Juanita. Chris Jackson was on leave. He wasn't on. And then one person didn't vote. Their vote, I don't know if they lost their connection or whatever, but that person didn't vote in the thing. But there was 25 people that did vote, and there was 14 in favor of sending the letter and 11 against sending the letter. And before you guys ask, am I going to name names? I want to say one thing first, which is that they do this thing, and it's not in the Constitution, but it's kind of traditional. that they'll go into executive session. An executive session, in theory, means that there's really not a record of the meeting. I would argue that there's hardly a record of the meeting anyway. I mean, in today's day and age, we could live stream the thing. The votes aren't recorded. There's really the executive council is not only dysfunctional, but we're not even communicating the little bit of business that we are handling, or the discussion or debate or the votes or whatever, back to the membership, which, we're there working on behalf of the membership and directly for the membership. And the membership is paying our salaries and our expenses and all of that. So I have a big problem with the secrecy of the executive council, but I'll tell you that the minutes of that WebEx meeting are going to say the council meeting was called to order. These people were in attendance and they went into executive session, and then the meeting was over. It's not going to record anything officially. So anything I tell you is like, hearsay or, my point of view or my perspective. But having said that, I really believe that all of you guys should be asking your representatives, your national business agent, or even one of the national officers or trustees, you should ask them how they voted. And if you want to verify with me, how they voted, if you think they're lying to you or whatever, I'd be more than happy to share that information. One guy reached out to me earlier this week and, wanted to know how that particular person voted, and that they told them. And I said, yeah, that's exactly how that person voted. So I think there should be accountability and transparency, but I think that accountability should be between the member of the union and that representative on the executive council. So I'd rather do it that way than just like put out a list. But I don't know. I have a list. Everyone kind of on the executive council that was taking notes would have a list. So I know exactly how everyone voted. I know James Henry is going to come on 8 Arbitration Podcast on Monday, I believe. And maybe he just goes over the whole list at that time. I don't know. But that's how I'm handling it right now. I hope that works for you guys. But if you want to ask me any questions, directly about a particular person, how they voted, I had no problem doing that.
Can we get access to the minutes?
Hey, Capone, hold on. Hey, can we rewind for like the people that are like me that have like no knowledge of what the hell the executive council is actually made of? Is it business agents and other people? Can you?
Yeah, you have 10 national officers housed in DC: president, executive vice president, director of city delivery, director of safety and health, health insurance, life insurance, director of retired members. I don't know if I'm close to the 10, but anyway, there's 10. And then you have 3 trustees, 3 national trustees. That makes 13. And then you have 15 national business agents representing the 15 regions around the country. And that gets you to 28.
And last time you were on, Capone asked this question. You guys haven't met in person in like almost a year, right?
Well, we did finally meet in person. It had been since July. So July, prior to the convention last year, we met prior to the convention. The next meeting was and that was on October the 19th of last year. And that was to go over the terms of the TA. Like, here's what the TA is. It wasn't a meeting. It wasn't a discussion. It wasn't a debate. It wasn't a decision-making situation, anything like that. Yeah, it was a training class, whatever. So the purpose of it was so that we could go out and sell the thing to the membership, So it wasn't. I would not call that an executive council meeting. Maybe somebody else would. I don't. And then we met finally at the end of March. But man, even the meeting at the end of March, no agenda. Like no. Here's what we're going to discuss. There are no subcommittees of the executive council. There are no things. There's nothing that carries over from one meeting to the next. We didn't even discuss, not at all, even the grievance backlog or the issues in the grievance procedure, which obviously, we need to come up with a plan on that. I proposed like a year ago that we come up with at least a subcommittee to start looking at the problem and figuring out what the solutions might be, report back, have like an executive council, like the members of the union think that's what it is. But it's very dysfunctional. It's very, very dysfunctional, and it's disheartening. And then you get votes where you're not even upholding the basic language in the Constitution, and it's like, wow, And to the people out there that are so worried that people, any member can bring forth charges, and you elect your representatives every 4 years to the national union, and then we have a convention every 2 years, and generally that's it. So you don't. I mean, once in a while we get to have our voices heard on a tentative agreement, and that didn't even appear to matter. But you as a member of the union don't really have a lot of voice in that. But when somebody brings forth charges, they're making that's their involvement with the union, right? And you hear people saying, well, we should all just quit the union. And I'm like, no, you have an avenue, you have ways and methods through our Constitution to get change, to force issues that you feel are important to the forefront. And one of those ways is if you feel like one of your officers is not following the terms of the Constitution, or they're derelict in their duties, you can bring forth charges. And that is the business of the Executive Council, to handle those charges appropriately per the Constitution, appoint an investigator, read the report, figure out if those charges are substantial. And if they are substantial, then you want to have hearings to develop those facts further and determine if, in fact, that officer did not follow the Constitution or was negligent in their duties. And if you find that they were, then it's either fine, reprimand, suspension, or removal from office. That is the duty, or one of the duties, of the Executive Council that we perform on behalf of the members of our union. And for the people, my brothers and sisters on the council that are shirking their responsibilities or find it burdensome, or, more charges, if they're going to take that type of approach, then maybe they shouldn't be on the Executive Council. I mean, that's how I feel about it. That is your duty as a member of the Executive Council. So,
Mike, one thing I'm interested that you're mentioning is you're talking about the meetings when you get together are not real meetings, basically. Explain to people the difference between how it's supposed to normally run and how a real meeting when you guys get together comparative to now. And you mentioned access to minutes of those WebExes and said sometimes they do executive privilege. Is there access to the minutes that people can read that are available?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And if for comparison purposes, like, I'm on the board of the Illinois AFL-CIO. So it's a board of like 42 people or something like that, different unions in Illinois. And I'm on the board. We just had a board meeting this week. We have regular meetings. There's an agenda every time. We open up a folder, a packet. It has all the communication in there. It has the agenda in there. It has the reports in there. And then you have the minutes from the previous meeting. You have a financial report in there. Like, there's a ton of information. There's something put up on the screen. You'll have a speaker. You'll have a discussion. People make motions, and you decide what you're going to do. And we're not even there that long. We're probably in and out in a couple hours, but we're handling a lot of business because it's a business meeting, and everyone's time is respected. And the person who runs the Executive Council is the president of the union, and the president of the union has to take an approach of, hey, this is the leadership of the union. I need to make sure I provide them with all this information so that we can have a productive meeting and we can have good discussions and we can make solid decisions on behalf of the union. But that's just not what we have right now under this president at all. Michael Rivera, he's the one that maker of the charges, I believe, if it's the same Michael Rivera. He asked about who read the charges at the Executive Council. What happened is they were sent out by President Renfroe ahead of time, less than 24 hours ahead of time. Matter of fact, I know I read them like right before the meeting was about to start. So it's not like, anyway, I don't know if everyone actually read the charges, to be honest with you guys. Maybe they all did. Maybe every single person did read the charges, but it wasn't like there was a question of, hey, did everyone read these things? Or it was posted on the screen, or we were in person and it was handed out to everyone, or, nothing like that. So the assumption is that everyone did read them ahead of time, but I couldn't tell you that for sure. So
I mean,
so where do we go from here? I think is the big question, right? Yeah, and you have there's a lot of things in the Constitution. So one of the things, so I'll say this, and I don't know if Mr. Rivera wants to jump in, and I've been talking to him a little bit about what his options are, and obviously he hasn't received this letter back, and we don't know exactly what this letter is going to say, but there is there is some history to the issue of what do you do if any member can file charges, and one of the reasons for filing charges is violation of the Constitution. I think that the NALC Executive Council violated the Constitution by not appointing an investigator and instead, sending the charging party back a letter. I think that violates the terms of the Constitution. I'm sure I'm not the only person that thinks that.
You're definitely not.
Yeah.
And
You're definitely not.
And you'd think there'd be a process where if the executive council didn't want to, an appeal, how does the appeal? There's no appeal process for this?
I think the appeal is you would bring a charge against the executive council. And I was going to say there's a history to that when Brother David Noble brought charges against the entire executive council sometime in the 90s. And what President Sombrado did, because the executive council is the body that really deals with and hears and makes a determination on charges, he didn't feel like 1993, someone said, he didn't feel like it would be fair, for the executive council to be in control of that. So what he did was he called for a constitutional convention to hear the charges and make a ruling by those delegates at the convention. And he said, anyone who was a delegate to the previous convention, so like if President Renfroe did that this year, anyone who was a delegate to the convention in Boston would automatically become a delegate to that special convention. And that convention, those delegates at that convention would hear the appeal or the charge that the executive council violated the Constitution when we sent them, the charging party, a letter instead of hiring an investigator. So that is definitely an option.
So, but Sombrado picked to do it that way. So that means the president has the choice of which way to do it, and can either choose for the executive council to basically vote against themselves and find themselves guilty, or do a convention, right?
Well, I don't know. See, it's not when President Sombrado did that, I don't think it was based on a requirement in the Constitution. It was just based on this is the only fair way to do it.
Yeah, fairness.
So if you look at, and I know it's been out there and people are spreading this information about Article 3, Section 2, because you have your biennial conventions every 2 years, and then it says special meeting. And I think special meeting refers to the same thing as a convention, because my concern with this special meeting is, are we going to be able to make motions and vote on stuff if we do get a special meeting?
Yeah, what's the rules of a special meeting?
Yeah, exactly. And what would be if there was a constitutional convention? What would the rules be? We just kind of don't know till we get there. But anything we do, we want to make sure it's a decision-making body of the union. And by all means, let's say we can't get there. I don't know what we'll be able to do. Definitely, the 2026 convention is going to be is the supreme body of the union, and will be a decision-making body of the union. And everyone that's going around submitting resolutions, going over, hey, let's think about this resolution or this amendment to the Constitution or whatever. Those are excellent discussions that need to be happening in every single branch in this country for sure. But there may be a way to push for a special convention or something this year. And there's a rap session. There's a rap session every off year of the convention. There will be a national rap session this year. Can we force the union to hold a special convention at the same time as the rap session? We'll be there already anyway, or do the presidents who attend the rap session per the Constitution, can they make a motion? Do they have any decision-making abilities at that rap session? Traditionally, no, and there's nothing spelled out in the Constitution that would inherently give them that right. But we're in a strange, we're in unique circumstances here, and so it's like we got to throw the whole weight of the organization in there to try to move this thing along and get this to an outcome where we don't have President Renfroe do the exact same thing in 2026 that he did in 2023, because that was a disaster and it was completely rejected by the members of the union. And the president of the union works for the members, not the other way around. So,
where would a special national convention? How do they decide where it's going to be? Is there any rule?
The rap session, the last one, the one that Sombrado called, they just did it in Vegas.
Okay.
And I've seen that letter going around regarding Article 3, Section 2, and that's what it says. It says, I want you to call for a meeting in Vegas or Atlantic City or something like that. But that would be the logical place. Or, like I said, in conjunction with the rap session, that would be another logical place.
All right, Michael Rivera, I think you had something to talk about.
Just
in regard to it.
I'm listening. I'm getting all this. I've got some of this information already, and just hearing it all spill out in the open right now. Look, guys, the vote should have never taken place. That was outside of the Article 10 procedure. Because of that vote taking place and called by the meeting was called by the charged party already is damning in itself. And there were avenues the executive council could have taken to avoid that vote. They could have deferred to a subcommittee. They could have recused themselves. But instead, they took that vote and chose to violate the Constitution. They chose to violate Article 10 procedure. And so, with that being said, if you guys are wondering what's next, I am going to file charges against the entire executive council. I've already started prepping the charges. I've laid it out. In the next coming days, I'm waiting for that letter to come in because, of course, I want to read that letter. I want to see what's in that letter. What are the details behind them calling my charges improper? And then I'm going to, of course, answer in kind in my charges. In my original 6 charges, I had constitutional questions that could have been taken up in executive council meeting, which was called that day. But it was not. That is in itself a dereliction of duty. If you're going to just circumnavigate the Article 10 process and treat it as just a regular standard like executive council meeting, the executive council meeting could have addressed the constitutional questions I brought up in regards to what is deemed an official act. And since they didn't do that either, they put themselves in a position where I have to charge them. I got to charge them all. And that's my right as a member, and I'm going to do that in time.
I hear you, brother.
Now,
I think we violated the Constitution. I agree with you.
Hey, Mike, how long have you been a city letter carrier, and do you have any titles, and what branch are you out of?
I'm just another disgruntled mail carrier, brother. I don't have a title. I'm just a city letter carrier. I've been with the post office since 2012.
All right, cool. So you just still carry mail. You're just another peasant, just like us, that got dismissed by the lords.
I just got off working, 9.5 hours, and I'm out here in the parking lot just listening to you guys chit chat, and I wanted to be a part of it. I know you got someone reached out to me and said, hey, if I can make it, but I made it.
There you go. Thank you.
No problem. Did you guys read the charges, I wonder? I'm curious. You guys had a chance to look over the charges. I feel like there's a lot of dismissal towards the charges, but I think that they're strong in itself. And nothing in the Constitution says I can't reintroduce the charge, especially one that wasn't investigated properly. My brother Mike could attest to that. I think there was more in there than meets the eye. So, and part of it was Mike had a good case, a very good case. And the problem is that they didn't give it the light of day, the time of day. And so I wanted to expand upon it, and I built upon it, and I asked questions like about the official actions of the president. Well, everything should be, in my opinion, and also what it was backed by the Constitution, that all official acts should be disclosed. All official actions should be disclosed from the president and the executive vice president. Even if they want to hide under the guise of informal discussion, it's still done on the clock, official capacity. If I did something, let's just say I went like 3 miles off my route on the clock, that's a deviation, right? That's official. That's an official action that I took that they're going to want to investigate. So why wouldn't I say, if you're having informal discussions in an official capacity, that's not an official act? Why isn't that? Why can't that even enter the initial investigation phase so that we can figure out what was done? And what's wrong with asking for for information about the Rolando Barner negotiation that took place prior to Renfroe coming back? If we already got our award, we're already stuck with this shitty agreement, pardon my French, then all that information is no longer sensitive. Am I right? We as the membership, dues paying members, have a right to know what was on the table. It's not sensitive anymore. It's stuff that we should be privy to now. And that was another request I made.
I asked Renfroe that when he was on our podcast if he would.
He would, wouldn't he?
No, he said there was no such thing because there were just notes here and there throughout the whole thing.
Oh, the Weir report says differently.
Yeah,
the Weir report says differently.
I was like, that was such a bullshit answer he gave that time. I was like, come on. But I think going forward, people should bring an amendment forward saying that, along with open bargaining, that all bargaining notes should be put in the members portal after the contract negotiations, so we don't have to deal with stuff like this again, because this is gonna happen again.
And like Capone was saying, I mean, where are the minutes to the executive council meetings?
Yeah, I've never even heard of them being
why is it a secret,
Well, especially when you say they have something executive that is to make it secret for that portion, that would deviate that the rest of it is not secret.
Right.
But it is anyways.
I'm in favor of live streaming the meetings. I know I'm definitely in the minority.
I don't see why anybody would be scared of that. Right?
I mean, why shouldn't we? We're there working for the members, and members want us. You can go turn on C-SPAN and look at those, congressional hearings and meetings and how they vote and all that. I mean, we work for the members of the union. I don't get all the secrecy.
Hell, if they're concerned that management will find out, why not just release them 3 months down the road, so at least we can see whatever happens during these things? I mean, wouldn't it be nice to know what were you guys discussing in November?
Well, like you said, if you needed to have a discussion that you didn't want management to be a part of, which once again, for clarification, none of these discussions are all that in depth or informative that management or anyone couldn't see them. But if you did, like you said, you could go into executive session at that time, and it would be off the record. But
that's crazy, because the other thing is national conventions, a 204B or a manager, a boss could literally be a guest to the national convention.
Yeah.
So like at this point, the secrecy in the non-transparency is like 1820s at this point. Like, we need to develop a new labor movement, and this is exactly highlighting the need for it, right? Like, the secrecy is destroying our union, not even just our union, the entire labor movement.
It across the board too, because I told Charlie Miller I'm going to put together a resolution to make national conventions live streamed, because there's no reason why they're not. We have
they're going to block
across the nation who can't afford to go to national convention. At least you can do is let them watch it.
They should be
vote. Why are you trying to hide this from us? What's going on there that's so important that you don't want us to know?
I'm gonna make the assumption that the delegates are gonna vote against that, because like There's branches out there. If you're up there for 5 days, Monday through Friday, one of those days is your day off, which I don't understand because if the convention's Monday through Friday, you should be there Monday through Friday. So I'm assuming the delegates, these old guard delegates, the status quo, are going to be against that because they don't want to be held accountable, as is the executive council.
The camera doesn't have to be on the crowd. It can be just on the stage.
Oh, it should definitely be on the crowd. It should definitely be on the crowd. I do not want
to. If you want to know what your delegates from your branch are doing, that's an internal matter. But as far as the NALC, we should live stream the speakers from the podium and the speakers from the microphones, and then that should be good enough. Anyone can go to the convention as a guest, so there's nothing that's a secret that happens at the convention. It's just another way of recording the events of the convention by live streaming it.
You would think that would make it a more concrete evidence of what actually happened. So that way, 50 years from now, when they suddenly bring a resolution out of their ass, oh, this was passed in the 2026 convention. Was it though? We don't know if it was or not. It was 50 years ago. Something shit like that.
Elliot brought this up to Renfroe the other day. Like, can you show me this resolution? He was like, no, whatever. And then on Classes of Mail podcast, Vahil Ugoze was on it talking about this. It's like, we have all these resolutions already passed, and you cannot find a hard copy of any of these resolutions. They're in the back of the resolution books, but it's just
a summary, right?
It's one sentence blurb, which doesn't even have the resolve. It's like, throw that shit in a PDF format and throw it in the members portal so we actually know what's going on. That way, we could counter these arguments.
So I shouldn't have to go digging through my branch's, bookshelf looking for these resolution booklets. I should just be able to pull it up on the internet just like I would the JCAM.
Yeah. And it brings up an interesting thing with the resolutions, and maybe a resolution needs to be passed to have the meeting notes documented. These WebEx so that we can have them. A resolution, because there needs to be a little bit more transparency. Obviously,
I think any member should be able to sit inside of a WebEx of any EC member. They just don't have the privilege to vote or talk. Like, why? If we're going to be able to live stream it, why can't we not sit at it? Look at this. Like, this Zoom meeting right now has over 40 people in it. And, not everyone's going to be able to talk. It's like the whole transparency. It's like you have diehard union people on a Saturday night at 8:40 p.m. sitting in this thing. Imagine if there was an executive council meeting. That shit would be loaded with people. And that is really how you build a union. You would get the diehard people building trust and solidarity with the executive council, with the business agents. And that's what we need right now, because across every union, you have the divide where it's the people in the suits and ties are out of touch with the people at the bottom. It's one of the most fascinating things right now with labor, as Trump's coming out abolishing collective bargaining rights for other federal workers. We're over here like, oh, it doesn't affect us. It's like, yo, motherfuckers, we are federal workers. We're not the private sector. Just because we're a postal service, and it's like we've created a disconnect inside of the labor movement, and even inside the postal service, and then even more inside of the NALC, we've disconnected so much. So
first off, attack on one union is attack on every single union.
Yeah.
I don't. No, you're coming after my brothers and sisters. Just because they're wearing a different suit and pants than I am doesn't mean they're not union.
And this goes back to the question of, oh, Karif, can you name the names of all these business agents and ECs who side with Renfroe? It's like, my mind, it's every single one of them have already laid their bed. It's been 700 days. If they were on the side of the letter carrier, they would have came out 700 days ago and sided with us, not 700 days later now. It's like every single person needs to be up for a vote in 2026. And I just want to say everyone needs to be voted out. People like, who would you replace? I know I would replace Ernest Gonzalez with the business agent in Texas, Paul Belanger up in New Hampshire.
Man, you don't get to vote for every business agent.
I'm just saying, if people need candidates, there are fighters. There are literally fighters out there that could do a better job than the business agents we have now.
So I tell you, if I could say something really quick, if if I do go through with this charge goes through, and we have the 1993 precedent that a special convention must be convened, if that actually happens, then these guys are going to be up on those charges, and it's going to be up to the delegation to decide their fate. And so I know right now we're thinking about the biannual convention that passed and how many people were drinking the Kool-Aid from Renfroe. A lot has changed since then, and the favorability has definitely dropped. So this special convention is convened, and it's back to the delegation to decide to vote on it, to listen to the charges, and to decide. Then I think there's a chance there that you can see some change, a lot of change from the top. And I know there's been a lot of talk about convening special conventions. A lot of folks are like, I think Stephanie and Jen, I forget their last names, but they have the Zoom meeting coming up. That's a great idea. A lot of proactive like that is what we need. I think when this move is made, from my part, it does give us another opportunity to hold those on top accountable, and to do it as all with the people, not take it out of their hands and put it back into ours. And I think it's really important that a lot of folks here are all over the country is to find out who your delegates are. Get in their ear. Let them know what's going to happen. What potentially can happen. I don't know. We'll see what this president decides to do, what to call. But let the delegates know what's happening. Let them be aware of the 6 original charges. Because trust me, I'm going to ask for those to be reinstated. And then the new charges as well. Let them know what's happening. And see if we can actually start making some real change once they put the power back to the people.
So we were talking about resolutions. I wanted to ask Mike Cariff. You had talked before about the team you had that worked on updates to one of the articles. Which article was it for the TA that you brought suggestions for?
Oh, I was on the committee. It was kind of like city delivery committee. So we had like Article 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, and 41.
Okay, because he had mentioned that the work rules that they made were due to resolutions, and that's why it was the will of the members that we wanted these work rules. And
I think, not to cut you off, I think he's referring to resolutions from the convention.
Past conventions, but he didn't use recommendations from your committee.
Yeah,
that you resolutions that nobody can find these past resolutions.
We did not propose out of that committee, that city delivery. I know we did not propose eliminating the 10-hour list. We did not propose having the carriers have the right to work in perpetuity or whatever.
Was there a resolution to reduce office time?
Right. It definitely was not. It definitely was not.
And when you had mentioned before, as we're talking about, the resolutions aren't written down and saved somewhere, and there's actually no real technical guard keeping of, this resolution was passed, we now have to do it. If it's something that the executive staff or anybody isn't interested in doing, they just don't do. If they don't want to do open bargaining, we just don't do it. There's nobody that's sitting there enforcing them. Well, it's passed a resolution, you have to do it.
Yeah, it's advisory, but obviously if you're doing your job as a representative of the union, you're taking into account, what the will of the members is, and what, when the members speak at the convention, that should mean something.
The will shouldn't be advisory. The will is the will. It's we pay the dues.
It's the will, but when I say it's advisory, you get into negotiations, you're going to prioritize things. Like, you shouldn't be bargaining for things that is not the will of the members. But the will of the members is $100 an hour, free Cadillac every year.
We're talking about resolutions that it passed.
18 weeks of leave, and whatever.
I don't remember any resolutions passed like that. We're talking about resolutions that are standard resolutions.
For instance, one of the resolutions I know is that you would get more leave. So let's say after 15 years, you get 5 weeks in a day. After 20 years, you get 6 weeks, and after 25, you get 7. Are we going to prioritize something like that or some of the other
bargaining
resolutions.
things
You know,
are
so
different.
that's why I say you have to kind of use
What
your
about the
judgment
ones?
as well.
What about the ones that decide how the NALC is run, like open bargaining, where they don't have to negotiate to get that; they just do it.
They
Who's
should
there
follow
to
the
make sure that
resolution.
it's done?
In that case, they should follow the resolution. That's why we brought forward charges, because President Renfroe did not follow General Resolution 12 and 22,
That
and
is
that
an
violated the
advisory.
will
That's
of the
the will.
members.
It's and maybe we need to set up a safeguard to make sure that when resolutions are passed that are for how the NALC is run, it actually gets done.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe there's a way to do that. Form some type of
Committee?
oversight, or something like that. With some oversight within the Constitution that would operate in that manner. But I don't know. On the one hand, we have so many things we want to change and address at the 2026 convention. On the other hand, there's a lot of things we can resolve just by electing different people in these positions. So, but we got to do both. I think we got to do both.
I just think I've only been in for 4 years, but out of the 4 years, I just been bombarded with the Great Postal Strike in 1970, the Donate to the Political Fund, and the food drive. And it seems like the NALC theory of what our union is just reminiscing about the 1970s strike. And through the decades, we have allowed that contract just to get worse and worse. And now shit has finally hit the fan where it's like we can't hire anyone. We're debating about trying to put lights into our uniforms, and it's like, how degrading of a job has this become? It's like we're in a identity crisis. I think going forward, I think the National Convention next year should actually have a discussion on what the NALC actually stands for. Like the fact, I'm frustrated because we got a brand new CCA in our office yesterday. He's 60 years old, and that's our brand new CCA. And I have 30 years left. If there's no one younger coming in after me, there's no one to sustain this job. And the cherry on top is he was already a CCA that got laid off into a different office. And they just told him to reapply and come to work at this office.
Yeah, because they're running out of the pool that they can pull from.
And here we are talking about a procedure of, we just need to elect new faces. And to me, the new faces are the same old guards that have allowed this to happen. I know people are going to be like, it's a different philosophy. But if we're not talking about revising what we actually stand for, here we are, we're Carif's on the thing talking about people want $50 an hour type of resolutions. For fucking real, the two demands going forward should just be two demands: abolishing CCAs and getting the starting pay up to $30 an hour. And the third demand is shrinking the steps. If we cannot hire anyone, there's no point on anything else, because we're all going to be working 14-hour days. And it's, in my mind, it's ludicrous. Here we are, an hour and a half into this meeting, and then we're sulking, which I hate sulking. It's terrible, but we've had 700 days of just being kicked in the nuts.
Yeah, Murph, you're right. I mean, Carif's been here a long time. He can admit it too. When you started here, you had to jump through hoops to get this job years ago because everybody wanted it. There's drug tests, background check. I remember you had to go answer questions on the computer, and if you got one of them wrong, medical-wise, you'd have to go see the nurse who would check you out to see if it was okay. One of the questions they called me out on is, do you carry more than 30 pounds a day on your back? And at the time, I was already a postal worker. And I said, yes. They had to call me in the room where I had to explain, well, I already work for you. That's why I have that condition. And now it's nobody. They are just trying to get people to take the job because there's no respect to the letter carrier. It's gone. They don't respect us. They don't respect the job. It's throw anybody in there. And now they're draining the pool so much, they have to rehire 60-year-old CCAs that they let go somewhere else because nobody else is applying.
Well, they do need to revamp the way they hire people. I mean, when I was hired, I was the third person on a list. and they just kept going down the list until someone stayed.
And how long have you been here, Elliot?
10 years.
All right, so I've been over 18, and it's around that. I mean,
I saw it. They don't do it anymore. They post it for a few days. Maybe someone takes it. Maybe they don't. One person takes it. 100 people take it. They call the first person, and somehow they lose the list. That's how it goes. That's what management tells me. They say, "Oh, I have no." Even my local manager's pissed off about because they have no control over what happens to hiring now. And yeah, I can see being aggravated as hell. Even we have people apply, they don't know that they need to check every few weeks to see if it's been posted again. It's a broken system. It's designed. It's that by design because
it's definitely designed.
There's people in human resources that like they know that their job is contingent on hiring people and people getting fired and have to rehire. That's their job, and they know if they don't do that job, then they're not having a job.
No, it also makes them expendable. It makes the CCAs, there isn't a will to get somebody, to train them, to have them be good, to get them to last his whole career. It's just expendable. Get them in, get them out, fire them, move them in. It is insane, the lack of respect that has come to the letter carrier.
And I'm just bringing this up because it's like people are like, oh, don't be so aggressive towards like these NBAs and these executive councils. Like Renfroe has them by the balls, but most of these people are already retirement age. They're never going to go back to carrying mail. So, in my point of view is, if you actually stand for the letter carrier, you would be risking it all. Like James Henry's out there fighting for us. Mike Harrov's out there fighting for us. And it's like, my point of view is like, that's very respectable. Just claiming that like Renfroe took your privileges away if you spoke out against him, that's a cowardly act. Like Elliot and everyone else is saying, like, I'm wearing the IWW hat. It's like an injury to one is an injury to all. And we're being injured here on the workroom floor. And I don't know, it's crazy. And I'm hoping there's more new blood at the convention in 2026, and we pass some fucking badass amendments and make our Constitution, our union, of fighting NALC. Like right now, it's very dormant, and yeah, I don't know.
Where's the idea of letting younger carriers go to the convention as delegates? You know, I've heard from so many branches where, 6-7 years in, they want to be a delegate, but they're told, no, so-and-so who's retired is going to take the seat.
Well, and that's the thing. The younger carriers need to get together because union participation is at an all-time low. No one can tell me it's not. I was talking to branch. They have 2,000 members in it. I said, well, how many people go to your meeting? Oh, about 20. I'm like, damn.
That is insane.
20 people can have all the control over your branch.
Elliot, you're 100% right.
You can get 20 CCAs in that branch all to go together and they can make change.
I have a small branch. I have 53 members, and my average meeting is 25, 26 around that time. And I've talked to people around the area, and they have branches that are 5 times, 2 times as big as me. And like, yeah, well, we got about 12, we got about 20, we got about 25. You have a pool of 10 times more than I do. And that's as much as you're bringing to the meeting. You're 100% right. People are not being involved, but I think it's not because they don't want to get involved. They feel like they're not being allowed to, or they're being gatekept.
Well, they're not being pulled in either.
Yeah, they're not being pulled. Oh, absolutely.
Literally, when I first started as a CCA back in 2017, after my carrier academy, the old steward was going to retire, and she looked at me and said, do you want to learn how to be a steward? Yes. Teach me how to be a steward. I'll do that. I'll fight some fucking management. Fuck them assholes.
Well, and also the idea of
I got pulled
down. What, like, don't we want to pass it down to people?
You don't see stewards going up to people and say, hey, I think you should try to become my replacement. Bring it on.
Yeah, why not?
Learn this shit. Get better than me and take it over.
And I don't see that shit. I'm a branch president. I try to teach all my members. And if any of them run against me and beat me, that just means they're better than me and I need to be better.
That's
like,
right.
It isn't like, oh, I can't teach them because I don't want them to learn. No, I'm confident enough that I'm doing good enough job that I can teach you and you're not going to replace me because I'm not doing anything bad enough to be replaced.
I would like to know how many vice presidents in a local branch have never filed a Formal A. That's what I want. I want to know because I cannot tell you the number of vice presidents that I've talked to in the smaller branches, the 200, 250 less, that they've never filed a formal. I'm like, you've never filed a formal? You're supposed to replace your president when they're gone. Well, they don't let me. They don't let you? That's a crock of shit. I'd be like, fuck you. I need to know how to do your job in case something happens to your ass.
You know, or you're just old enough and you retire and nobody knows what to do once you retire.
There's no there's like no system for their grievances. There's no organization. Nobody knows what they have. And I'm over here like, yeah, I digitize every single file, and I have, electronic records that I'm going to be able to pass on to the next generation. Hopefully, we're still doing stuff via email.
Well, part of our job
30
is
years when I retire.
Aren't we supposed to be organizers, protectors of the contract, and teachers of the contract? We're just not doing the teaching part.
Well, it's not even just the
part, I guess.
The union is not just the contract, though, right? It's the union meeting, right? Like Elliot's saying. And like my branch, I just brought up bylaws to introduce Zoom meetings. And one of the biggest things is like, we don't know if management's listening. It's like, that's such a cop out. It's such a cop out, right? Like we literally talk about nothing that would affect like any security. And then we have fucking people in every branch that's buddy with management that goes and tells them everything anyways.
They're going to find out. They're going to find out.
My point though is like people like me and most people, right? Like you're working like 10 hours a day and you're probably living an hour away from the union hall. And then you probably have kids that daycare is like $500 a day and you're only making $18 an hour. So it's like the work-life balance, the life has to come first at this point. Like, yeah, sure, you have to sacrifice, but if these branches don't open up and expand their resources to actually include the members, right? Like, if we don't get like the Zoom meetings in our branch, like 70% of my membership in my branch live like an hour and a half away from the union hall, 70% or something like that. And it's like, that's crazy, right? If our 8 hours is 4 p.m. and our branch meetings are at 6:30, you're not going to have people wait around 2 hours when they live an hour and a half away.
Most important information out.
Well, no,
that's the thing. You need, and I'm very vocal about this. Like every branch should have a podcast, even if it's just updating people. And like Alan Gigax talked about on his Classes in Mail episode today, and I brought this up to my branch president the other day too. It's like, why are we not sending out an email the Monday before a union meeting with the agenda items of what's actually going to be discussed at the union meetings? And that's one of the bare basics for union democracy. It's if you want us to show up, if is in quotes, you should at least put an agenda out there so people actually know, and then actually ask for people's agenda items if they want to speak. But yeah, it's 9 o'clock. I have nothing else to say. I want to kind of open the floor for anyone to ask Karif any questions if Elliot and Capone are cool with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I think I'll have Ken ask first. Let me unmute him.
Hey, how y'all doing? Ken Grigsby, Branch 1259, Corpus Christi, Texas, 26-year carrier. Sorry, I'm an old head. But how do you feel about the at-will appointments that have to kiss the ring to stay, in their respective positions, like RAAs, fucking Step Bs. How do you feel about that being an at-will position?
This question for me, right?
Yeah.
All right, brother. So I would be in favor. It's obviously up to the delegates if you go to amend the Constitution, but I'd be in favor of having more of our positions elected versus appointed by the president. I don't think that it's inherent that the president has to use that type of criteria in selecting a person. I mean, if I'm the president, I can tell you my criteria would be, obviously, if the Constitution changes, you follow the Constitution. But right now, the president just makes the appointments. My criteria is going to be, the skill level, the passion for the letter carrier, and the connection to the workroom floor. I don't want our union to be represented by union people. I want our representatives to be letter carriers. And if you're not willing to carry your route regularly, if you're not going to your local union meetings, if you're not, involved as a letter carrier, I'm not looking for people like that. That's just how I feel about it.
How do you feel about the
But the Step B people, I don't know, man. My Step B people are pretty vocal. I haven't
that's
had that
good.
experience.
Well, we got people that are scared to act because of the, that having to kiss the ring stuff. So I saw it at the convention. I saw people sitting down when they should have been standing up against Renfroe, and these are people that are seasoned, advocates, and they knew better. So when you see them sit, you're just kind of like, I think that it maybe they got that thing hanging over their heads. How do you feel about the Constitution changing the power of the president's authority over the negotiating process?
Any amendment you had to look at for the exact language, but the general concept that I've been saying, every place I go, the president has way too much power in this organization. It's just not, it's not right that the president runs the supreme body, the convention. The president runs the executive council. The president has complete autonomy over collective bargaining. The president does all the hiring, the appointing. The president's the face of the union. It just everything goes through one person. And of course, we got to be real careful who we elect as the president. But I think that making some updates to the Constitution to modify some of those powers would be in the interest of the union. I'd be in favor of that.
Good. We have some being presented, and hopefully you can get your people out there behind these, because I think the collaboration and just the support makes it more advantageous. So people kind of like, hey, well, tariffs behind it, then it must be something worthwhile. Thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna be on that note. Just trying to kind of get it together, and it's not a rush, but I don't want to wait too long either. But I want to put together like some recommended resolutions, some type of packet or something, so that branches, we can send that out to all the branches, or put it on a website or whatever. Publish these resolutions so that branches all over the country can start having those debates and those discussions now, leading up to the 2026 convention. And if you have a resolution that has the support of 100 branches or whatever, that's much more likely to pass when you get to the convention. So yeah, we're going to be working on that. That's one of the things on the agenda for the campaign.
Don Mabel, I'll call on you. I see your hand raised.
Okay. Can you hear me, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Appreciate this. First off, Elliot, terrible jersey. Take it off. Sorry, Mike. I know.
That's the Chicago Blackhawks, man.
I know it is. So I guess my question would be, our Constitution is so tiny. It is so vague. And I was talking with a couple other BFN members at a meeting we had on Wednesday night, and I was suggesting that we send in multiple resolutions to change all this, because it's not just the president; it's the EC, as you see. They're fighting you. They're fighting Henry, and we have so many people sitting on that fence, right? Would it be better to, in your opinion, to forget the resolutions and just completely reconstruct our Constitution?
Yeah, I wouldn't forget the resolutions, but I would focus on the amendments. I agree with you. I think that amendment to the Constitution is the fastest and most direct way to make change within the union.
And really our Constitution is so broad. It's not specific at all. When Elliot went up there and kind of let Brian have it, one thing that Brian did was he focused on one thing, and that was the one resolution out of all the language that Elliot was up there trying to argue against him. Brian turned it to be just one resolution, and he kind of caught Elliot on that, and he focused on that instead of going after all the rest of the language. And I just thought, way too much power to the EC, way too much power for one person. And while I see these tickets come for the CLC, which I'm happy to see change happening, or yourself getting into the presidential position, nothing is really changing as is. We have the Good Old Boys Club in there now, and even if the CLC gets in there, you're still going to have that good old boys club. And Badmouth, I know that you don't like 50-year-old plus, but I'm on your side on this one, right? So we need to make some huge changes, especially with technology now, where we do have these Zoom, these WebEx meetings where people can get on and make emergency votes if necessary through presidents or whatever of each branch. I would think that that's something we should go down. And with that, I'm done. Take off that jersey,
I appreciate
Elliot.
that, man.
Greg, Similac for branch 334. I know you had a question.
Yeah, so Greg Samlock, President, Branch 334. Sorry, I hopped on a little late, so I missed some of it.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, yes.
I don't know where, but I know it's Massachusetts.
20 miles west of Boston.
Got you, brother.
Elliot, I saw that clip today. I waited a couple of days to watch it because I apologize. This fucking guy pisses me off so much. And good for you in that clip. I watched it today and I was on my route and I was fired up. But I think Murph made a good point about the membership needs to be educated, and Capone and I have been talking a lot about this in the last couple of weeks about what we can do as local. We're two of the smaller branches in Massachusetts, but what we can do as branch presidents to help educate the people that don't go to their meetings, or maybe their meetings are too far. And Murph made a comment about podcasts. And at my meeting recently, we talked about, just uploading a podcast to just the members that don't go to the meetings, just to give them some sort of like knowledge of what's going on. Even if they choose not to go to the meetings, they still need to be informed about what's going on. And the problem we see is, I feel like National doesn't want people informed. And I think that's one of the biggest problems right now. It's like, do they not want them informed because they're afraid their jobs are going to get taken? And I think that's a horrible approach that's taken. You want 100% of these people informed. And I think we'd have to do a better job as, branch presidents. Like, I try to get a high turnout to my meeting. I try to be fairly quick with it. I see, like, sometimes you look out and you see some people just kind of like yawning and stuff after a hard day's work. But I do feel we have to do something locally, and hopefully regionally catches on to just educating the members, because there's so much shit going on with the post office right now. We need these people informed. And moving on to Brian, what these two presidents out of Ohio and New Jersey are doing, I know for a fact that he is rattled by this. And this is the pressure that needs to be put on him to affect some sort of change, because he thinks he's invincible at this point. He's not going to resign. I think Elliot asked him, will you resign? He said, no, I'm not going to resign. A majority of the membership probably wants him to resign, So it's really, from a local branch president position, it's really affecting the morale of some of the carriers. That I see one of my carriers in this chat right now, and I know he doesn't like the guy. And I wish that most of my branch was in here, because it's really affecting the morale of the carriers, and you don't want to see that, because that's what he would rather see everybody just ill-informed and not involved. And then, if 30% comes out and votes, he gets reelected. Because what's he going to say to the?
Hey, Greg, what you said something about what the president in Ohio and New Jersey are doing? What were you referring to there?
But the special Article 3 special.
Article 3 Section 2.
Yeah, that's pressure put on him.
The call for a special meeting.
Yeah, the call for a meeting. Mike, he's got to be rattled by that, because it's gonna I hope, I don't know how we get it. It's Tuesday. I hope we get we got to get more presidents there. We got to put the pressure on him, because what he did was unacceptable. And I don't know if a majority of the 260,000 carriers realized how bad it was. My vote only had 68% voting, and I wanted to find the 50 people and say, why didn't you guys vote? Even if you voted yes, why didn't you vote? And I blame myself for them not being informed. So we have to do a better job as informing the membership locally, regionally, nationally. So that's all I had for that. So I didn't really have a question for you, Mike. I apologize. I just needed a rant rave, because
after
seeing that clip today, I waited 2 days.
One thing about you got your local branches, and there's some branch presidents, and there's some regions that are trying to be a little more proactive on this. But I think that there's a lot of ways to reach the membership and to engage with the membership, podcasts and Zoom meetings and, kind of electronically. But also, there's most people, I think, don't come to the local meeting for the business purpose. It's technically a business meeting, but really what the carriers want to do is get together and talk about the issues that they're facing in the workplace. And I think we got to do a better job of working with the branches to have some of those meetings or build that structure where the carriers, you have a lot of big branches that have, 50 offices and stuff like that. When do the carriers have the opportunity to get together and talk about, the shit that's going on the job? You know what I mean? And so we have this branch structure which has these monthly meetings requirement in the Constitution, but there really is no requirement to have rap sessions and informational sessions and bringing the carriers together on a regular basis outside of just having that monthly meeting. And some branches do better in their monthly meetings than others, but I think there's a lot more ways to skin the cat, and maybe even looking at the requirements in the Constitution of the government and federal and subordinate branches, maybe requiring the branches to do more things like that in the Constitution, or maybe just work with them informally to do things like that. So I appreciate that comment.
So that brings up an interesting situation, Mike. Do you think, because normally the way it usually goes is the branch presidents, they're not really, the upper NALC doesn't hold them to any form of standard. It's kind of like you elected them, they're your leaders, Are you saying that you think they should get more involved with these failing branches, the branches that aren't doing well, and either help or do something to affect change there? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, man. And really, you got to do that through the regional offices. And I mean, we do that in Region 3. I would get in there and, find out the details. Your grievance procedures got to work. I don't believe I believe the members get whoever they want as their elected representative. But honestly, people vote for a president for any number of reasons. And that reason is not always this is the best person to serve us as the chief steward, but yet their duties are the chief steward. So whoever they elect, I'm going to work with that person, but I'm not just going to accept just off the top that is the right person or that person has the skills to be the chief steward. And that's just one aspect of being the president. That's the chief steward is one aspect. Then you have the communication piece. Then you have the financial piece. And some of the presidents are very good at all of that, and some of them need some help, and some of them, maybe they need to appoint somebody else to be in charge of certain aspects of that. So I believe that the National Association of Letter Carriers, as a union, through the regional offices, which we have regional offices all over the country, should be working with each and every branch to make sure that they're functioning in the best way they possibly can to serve the membership. Absolutely.
Mike, wouldn't you agree that a role of a branch president is to be almost like I call myself like a guidance counselor for my membership. Like come in my office, have a little warm.
That's part of it.
It's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we see that at the national level? At least say what you want about Fred Rolando, and I know a lot of people probably in this Zoom have problems with them about the DAS award and that, but he had some sort of warmth to him. Brian doesn't. He'll never like. There was a famous. I'll say famous. There was a screenshot of a Facebook message to him, like right before the TA came out, and this woman messaged him, "I'm table 2, step B. I'm really struggling," and he was like, "Oh, don't worry, you're getting something. You're getting like I don't know if he use historic there, but you're getting something big. Your life's going to change," and that was like he essentially lied. To the public, to her, I won't say to her face, but he has no warmth to him. And sometimes you just have to like be like, I know you guys are struggling out there. There's nothing like that to him, and I think that's something's missing. You know what I mean?
I think, and Greg, I think that comes back to just like in every branch, you have the right to elect the person that you think is best going to serve you. And I mean, certainly looking at that person's personality, looking at that person's work ethic, that person's people skills and community, you know what I mean? Like all of that has to factor in. And that's why I'm very adamant that the members of the union need to pick who their representatives are. And we need to stop all this. We're going to tell you who all the right people are to lead this union. The members need to gauge those things. They need to have the opportunity to talk to you and talk and gauge the type of person that you are and the type of leader you're going to be. And I think that if we do more of that, which is what I'm trying to do by going around the country and talking to everyone and, that kind of thing, I think that that'll bode well for the future and making sure that we get those type of people as our representatives,
Well, I think we have John Morris. Is he around here still?
Where did Adam go? Adam said he had questions.
I mean, I see Adam commented. I know Badmouth did too.
Yeah. So
what's going on, brother?
Hey, Badmouth Branch 226. Hey, guys.
I know your real name, man.
Yeah. And don't
I won't
call
tell
me,
him though. I won't tell him.
No, the real name's Jonathan, but like only my mother, the law, and the bank call me Jonathan. So
Badmouth fits him too much.
Yeah. Well, I got that in my union meetings because they said that Badmouth kid this, that Badmouth kid that. And like, kid, I'm 40 fucking years old, and it's a problem in these branch meetings where I am 15 years younger than the next youngest person on a regular motherfucking basis.
Wow.
That's a problem. And like, we talk about like getting people involved in shit, and like, why? I have a lot of problems with some of this discourse because I rally up my CCAs and I rally up some of the people in my branch or in my office who would never go to a branch meeting because they're working 6 days out of the week, and the little bit of time they get to spend with their family, they got to drive 30 minutes away to go sit at a thing that's run by retirees and run by the status quo who are just talking about some benefit golf tournament. I would be embarrassed if I managed to get my CCAs to come to a branch meeting and there was nothing for them to do there. I've been going to meetings nonstop for 2 years and I'm still told, wait your turn. Like, we need something to rile up people and get them involved, and getting them to the branch meetings, like we like those resolutions, those amendments of Paul Bollinger's, and there's a couple others that I posted in there. Those are good ways to do it, because I got a lot of people who are like, well, tell me when I need to show up to vote and I'll be there to vote. That's dope. But for a broader thing, we need something for people to rally behind, because we all got everyone super excited about voting no on the TA. They voted it down and it still got pushed through anyway. That is such a big kick in the fucking nuts. That why would we ever even pretend like they got a reason? Like they got a fuck. I had someone trying to call in. Sorry. You there? Are we there?
Yes.
Why ever would we?
I think Badmouth.
I think he's getting a phone call. Yeah.
Yep. You there? You there?
Yes, we're here, Badmouth. What's up, brother?
Sorry. Why in a million years would we ever wonder why people don't feel like they got a voice after that shit happened? So we got to figure out a way to get them. Even if, I don't know. I'm so angry and so depressed about all this shit. And yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate y'all and us talking about this stuff to get involved. And one other thing I got to say, I get really fucking frustrated about the talk around, back in my day, there was a test we had to take to get in. Back in my day, like, why we got this employee retention program and no one's any good. No one's any good. Motherfucker, we make such little money. Such little money. I've said this before. I could get a job at the gas station around the corner and make $2 more an hour. And I could walk to work instead of driving 30 minutes in traffic one way. right?
And get a free
Hey,
and get a schedule you can control, right, Badmouth?
Exactly. They want us to provide prime rib work for baloney pay.
And Badmouth,
And carriers who get mad at CCAs for not being as good at the job or not giving a shit. Like, we aren't paid to give a shit, dudes. We aren't paid to give a shit.
So
Like,
Badmouth, that's what a lot of us
it's the
are
only
saying.
job in the world. It's the only job in the world where you are expected to give prime rib work for baloney pay, and then you have your coworkers also jumping on that fucking shit too. Don't fall for that trap. You are doing management's job for them
So Badmouth,
by
with
falling
the
into
whole-
that trap. Okay, I'm done.
with people mentioning that there used to be a test and all this stuff, I think the idea of it is they're saying that they should pay people so that it's worth them to take a test to get the job. That they're saying people need to get paid more, not saying, oh, you should make them take a test. We understand you're getting paid shit money. We think you should get paid more, so much that they have thousands of people apply, and now you have to hold a test and don't just have to hire the first person applies and then break them. Because a lot of guys you have coming in, a lot of them that start at that low that are young are coming in for a career and a future and seeing the abysmalness around them and realizing there's no career here. I can go work for the gas station and get the same shit. I do want to say, Badmouth is my favorite part of this show. Of my own show, Badmouth is my favorite part of it every single time he asks the question.
I get defensive. So I apologize. I know that that's not how everyone's saying it. I get defensive.
Love you, Badmouth. You're the best.
All right. We have Mike.
Okay, I'm at. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Awesome. All right. So the thing about, branch participation, member participation, it comes down to the shop steward. When the shop stewards come back to give us our stand-up talk, they have to be promoting these branch meetings more often. There's not that much. There's a disconnect. There's a disconnect between national, regional, and down to our local branch. And it goes down to our local stations. Our shop stewards aren't giving you that information like they should. They're not taking the opportunity to educate the members at the station of what's happening in those branch meetings. And branch 70 ain't perfect. I'm going to tell you that right now. When I went and I submitted those charges, it was on my own. I didn't get the blessing of the president. And in fact, it's that old saying, ask for forgiveness is faster than asking for permission. And so once I submitted those charges, I go up to the branch 70 president. I get the handshake then. But beforehand, I was discouraged. I was told there was no reason to take through those charges. Wait till 2026, brother. Why am I going to wait for 2026 if I could do something now, given my right as a member? And so there's a lot of discouragement there from a position of a branch-like leader that we shouldn't be doing. We shouldn't be doing. We should be promoting and should be exercising, being encouraged to use our right as members to do whatever we can. My shop steward, when I was collecting signatures, I could tell you, my shop steward tried to rat me out to management. I kid you not. There were carriers coming up to me saying, hey, Mike, the shop steward was telling you on management that why are you collecting signatures on the floor? Like, why didn't he just come up to me and talk to me and know exactly what I was doing? A couple weeks later, now he's on my side. Why? Because he sees what's happening. He sees what I did. All he needed to do was come up and talk to me. Why is it this way? Why do we having a shop steward who's a representative of the branch coming out and going after their own members? That tells me something. That speaks a lot louder. And I also want to take this moment to thank Mike Cariff because Mike Cariff went on, on and said, "Hey, you could do whatever you guys want. You guys could go and file your charges, file away." That is a sign of a leader right there, and I appreciate that. And that's not even my regional officer there. He's not my he's not my business agent, but he's speaking truth. And so I think that there is definitely a problem with the local level and getting people motivated to go. If we're going to go to a branch meeting and we're going to be talked down, or if the gavel, when new business gets introduced, the gavel goes quick, is picked up within a second to just close it out, that's a sign of problems there. You're not giving the members, especially new ones, who are hesitant, who are nervous, who don't know the procedure, to give them a chance to speak. And you're quick to that gavel. And, okay, I'm not going to get up to the mic because that gavel's already half raised. That's a problem. That's a damn problem that needs to get fixed. I guess that's all I got right now.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.
We have damn, who is it? Matt.
Adam, call on Adam.
Yeah. Is it Adam or Matt?
You mind?
I don't know. Adam been waiting for like a half hour.
All right, Adam.
I just wanted to clarify, because I'm sure there will be other podcasts talking about this. Get the timeline specific, if you don't mind. So you join this executive council meeting. Brian Renfroe brings up a vote for sending a letter to Brother Rivera to essentially tell him his charges are invalid.
Well, somebody made a motion to that effect. President Renfroe and the executive vice president spoke about why they felt that the charges were not proper at this time. And then one of the other council members made a motion, and it was seconded that we send a letter back, stating that.
Okay. And so sending a letter by that, you took that to mean we are specifically voting to dismiss these charges?
In lieu of, it was sending the letter in lieu of appointing an investigator per the Constitution, yes.
Okay. And then you called for a roll call just to get the positions of everyone.
Correct.
Okay. Good to know. Give me 1 second. Is there anything, given the fact that this skirted the Constitution, is there anything barring Henry from still appointing an investigator?
I've wondered that question. I thought about that myself as well.
Can he just do it?
Yeah, the question would be what authority. So, he had said he wanted to appoint, or I guess he had said he's appointing Pete Moss. So if he does that, then how does that person get paid by the NALC? And maybe they don't care. And do they have the authority to kind of get in there and ask questions? Are people going to respond to the questions? That kind of thing. That's a thought, though. That's a thought.
Yeah, I would definitely push him to do that and see what kind of barriers you hit. Obviously, there is a tactic to just pretend like you're dismissing these charges when there's really no constitutional reason to do that.
Right. The Constitution doesn't allow you to dismiss them. It says appoint an investigator.
Exactly. So everything it's similar. It's similar to taking the vote for the expedited arbitration, right? The Constitution doesn't require that, doesn't request that at all. He did it. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything. So this letter that you're sending to Brother Rivera also might not mean anything. So I would suggest taking the steps that the Constitution lays out, appointing an investigator, pushing the boundaries, and see where they stop you. At that point, it really solidifies any further charges, because now you're stopping the investigation that the Constitution calls for. Taking that vote, really doesn't mean anything. So I would suggest still pushing the actual rules of the Constitution forward and see if they try and stop you from doing it.
Hey, not to cut you off, Adam, but Dave Grosskopf is on. What do you think about that?
What do I think about what, Mayo?
About James just going ahead and appointing the investigator anyway.
I think that's what should be done. Again,
Yeah.
like you brought up, the Constitution is very clear. And I'll give you an example. I have a specific example in my branch. I had a bunch of Article 10 charges filed in my branch, and I thought very similarly that some of those charges presented didn't follow the rules. So I called my business agent and I said, hey, listen, do I have the authority as the president to dismiss those charges based on me not believing the Constitution was filed, or do I have to go through the process? Business agent said, hang on, let me get a hold of headquarters. He got a hold of Barner. Barner came back, which is kind of comical because Barner's the guy waving him, but Barner came back and said, oh no, Constitution says, president doesn't have the authority under the Constitution, to waive those charges. The process has to go through, and then the party that is being, charged could argue that they weren't presented properly, to the branch and make an argument that way, kind of like a technical argument, or an arbitrability argument in the grievance procedure. You could make a similar argument, there in that hearing.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And that's one thing about some of the questions that come to NALC headquarters is do as we say, not as we do. I've always thought that's funny, man. But no, I appreciate that. So Adam, back to you. I think that's a great idea, and we'll definitely forward that to Brother Henry and see if that is in fact what he intends to do.
Okay,
Hey,
I'm
Adam.
sure it'll come up on another podcast. Go ahead.
Adam, what branch and how long you been in for?
Branch 210, Rochester, New York.
I love how we say how long you been in, like it's a jail sentence.
Yeah,
how long you been in?
9.5 years. Yeah, 9.5 years as a carrier, 3 years as CCA.
Cool. Thank you.
So got that down. Question as far as, are you allowed to? I don't know. There's no position. You're an MBA, so is there any way that you're allowed to talk to Arbitrator Nolan and clarify any of these, or do you find that they would just ignore you unless there's like an investigation? Just to find out if
I would much rather prefer to investigate on our end. I mean, not only the president, but everybody who was in that room or in part of that process in any way works for us, works for the National Association of Letter Carriers. So I just would much rather us be able to develop those facts and ask those questions. I mean, you're alluding to like what part was mediated, what part was arbitrated, where were the disputes, and that's what we all want to know. Mm-hmm. And I think we need answers to that. It's from our people, I'm not so sure you'd get. I don't know how that would go if you wanted to ask Arbitrator Nolan, but yeah, anyone's a free citizen, obviously. So,
gotcha. As far as I know you had mentioned the expedited arbitration earlier when you first got on. The vote of the Executive Council to approve or go into expedited arbitration. I think even Brother Henry has mentioned that things were told to the Executive Council about that expedited process that you guys were like, okay, that sounds good. Like he'll update us or he'll do this or whatever.
More than that, we were going to be present at the hearings.
I'm curious as
clearly stated.
Yeah, I'm curious as to why you still believe him.
As far as when he said that this is how the expedited hearings would take place?
Yes.
I mean, that's a good question. And, I've said maybe I made a mistake on that vote. But the fact of the matter is, under the Constitution, he had the authority to run that thing however he wanted, including the way he ran it. So it was like, we're giving our advisory opinion on this. And I didn't think it was bad, the concept of moving this forward quicker rather than slower, considering everything going on in the world and, dealing with the White House and stuff like that. Of course, it's his fault we're in this position because we should have went to arbitration in 2023. But nonetheless, making a decision as a union, do we want to try to move this thing along or do we want to slow drag it? My personal opinion was I'd rather move this thing along that's more, more in our interest. But he had the right to do it however he wanted to anyway. But maybe we did get suckered by just voting on a period. Probably should have just abstained and said, you're not gonna give me the cosign to this thing, kind of thing. Chris Jackson did vote against it, and he was like, for that reason, he's like, I'm not co-signing to this.
I think that probably would have been a wise choice. You kind of tied everyone that voted yes on that probably tied themselves a little bit to this.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, but I've heard people say that, but I don't agree with
Do you know
that,
what
but-
the expedited? I mean, you've done arbitrations? Do you know the expedited arbitration? Have you looked it up in the Constitution? The concept, the definition of expedited arbitration.
It's in the Constitution?
No, I'm asking if you've.
No, it's not in the Constitution.
It's not. It is in the JCAM though. And do you know what it says in the JCAM?
It's in the JCAM, but the context of it in the JCAM is referring to rights arbitration to enforce the terms of the contract. It's not referred to in any way regarding interest arbitration, which is to develop the terms of the contract. So I don't think any of the language in the contract would be applicable. Yeah, I'm familiar with the language though. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. I think that was it. I mean, I had some more questions, but they weren't on that topic of the issue with that executive council. I don't know if you want to answer any other questions I had, but that's up to you.
That's up to Capone and
I don't want to
Murphy.
waste the whole Zoom meeting.
Yeah,
on
save that for the end because I have a couple of questions that I need to ask him as well.
All
right. Matt, you still
Good
here?
questions, man.
Got a bunch more.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Hey, Adam, I'm going to come to
You
Rochester.
drinking this
though.
time?
No.
Okay.
Dude, that was a really rough week with like court for my kids and all this stuff. That was horrible. So
Corey got you drunk last time. Cariff hasn't yet. So.
No, this is true. So, Karef, man, thanks for coming out to my branch. I appreciate that. I had a question about the resolutions from past national conventions. So, we can get the booklets. They have like single sentence summaries, but only delegates can get them. Now, is there a way that the rank and file can get the full language of any of the ones that have been passed previously?
I don't know. I don't know if it's just a simple matter of writing a letter to the secretary treasurer and saying, I'd like a copy of this. I know that we have a copy of all the resolutions at NALC headquarters. The reason I know that is because when we go into contract negotiations, we're all given a booklet with those, resolutions going back to 1970. So somebody has them on file somewhere at the headquarters building. I don't know how they have them categorized. I don't know in what format they have them. Do they have them digitally? Do they have them on like pieces of paper, whatever? But it shouldn't be, it's obviously not a secret. Someone put in the chat, you would just ask Nicole, the secretary treasurer. And I think that would work, but I don't know that for a fact. I don't know anyone that's done it, but I don't see why that wouldn't work.
All right. Well, if they can give me the contact info, I would gladly get everything.
Ryan at NALC.org. RHINE at NALC.org.
Sweet deal. I'm going to do that because before you came to my branch meeting, my NBA was there, and I asked him point blank, kind of like Elliot did with Brian Renfroe, about if everything in the TA was a resolution that was passed, how is it that we voted to reduce our office time?
Yeah.
And I got no answer.
So
Yeah,
it's not,
like,
I got the same question, and he's supposed to be coming to the Illinois State Convention. And if he does, and you guys probably want to do this everywhere, if President Renfroe is going to come out to your rap session, convention, events, or whatever, I think we should send him a letter ahead of time telling him to bring certain information with him, including what are those resolutions that you're relying upon, what things in the TA were not based on a resolution whatsoever, and of course our favorite question, what things were mediated and what things were, would you call arbitrated or in dispute that the arbitrator had to resolve for us? I mean, if he's going to show up at one of these events that are put on by a state association or a branch or, a region rap session or whatever, he should be prepared to answer those questions, in my opinion.
Mike, should
I
I
agree.
come down for the state convention?
Yeah, you coming?
I might.
Sure. It's in Springfield, and at the end of June or third week in June, I guess.
I'll see if I can make it work.
That'd be
And,
awesome.
and
brother.
also, shout out to you, Elliot. You're the fucking man.
Thank
Isn't
you,
he?
Matt. Dumbass.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Matt.
Have a good one.
I think we have Ernest Gonzalez on next. Ernest, do you hear?
Yeah, I'm here, brother. What's going on, Mike? Good to see you again, brother, man.
How you doing, sir?
Oh, just fucking peachy, bro. Just peachy. Can't complain. Living
You've
the
been
dream.
nominated for a business agent in Region 10. I mean, you got to wait till
Allegedly.
August 7th of 2026 to do it
Yeah.
officially, but,
Yeah, allegedly.
you got at least one
which-
person who wants to nominate you, man.
Oh, I'm flattered. Yeah, I guess like real quick, man. It's one of those things that it's just it's fucking eking in my craw here. It was something that happened. Matter of fact, it was in reference to you. They tried to have a special meeting in Houston, Texas, where they were going to have everybody there to discuss the tentative agreement and decide that you were not going to be fucking invited, which I, because it's kind of in my backyard, took personally, And so I remember, sending out a message to matter of fact, I sent it out to David Groskopf, and then I sent it out to Corey, and they were very receptive to it as well. Like, no, you're right. This is bullshit. Fuck this. This is all hands on deck kind of thing. Like, the principles of how we conduct ourselves as a democracy is much more important than however we feel about certain aspects, And and Dave, it's good to see you too, brother. But so going back to this, my biggest question to Corey and Dave when I sent this out originally is us calling out our MBAs by name or hoping that the membership has their contact information of like, we need to know who in the hell thinks that this is okay and who in the hell thinks that this is not. And for me, and I don't know if this question has been asked already, I put it in the chat, but I haven't. The messages are coming a million miles an hour, so I don't know if it was responded to. And I don't know if they've asked you before. Like I said, I worked a little late today, so I just got on here about an hour and some change ago. Is this completely out of the question for us to start really putting out the names of these fucking enablers, And because it's just at some point he clearly doesn't give a fuck, He just doesn't care about this thing. He doesn't understand the importance of these rules that supersede his authority and why it's important to the institution rather than to his own power. And so for me, are we going to start kind of name dropping these kind of things of like, hey, these are the people that voted this way and these are the people that voted that way? Do you know? And I mean, is this something that we're going to start bringing out into the open so that if we can't go after Renfroe, because clearly he doesn't give a shit, can we at least start going towards his enablers and start asking them really tough questions of like, what the hell is your problem? And why do you think that this is okay?
Yeah, I mean, you should definitely ask whoever you want to ask, and I don't mind verifying that information. I have a list of who voted how. I know exactly who voted which way. And I'll tell you this, when I called for the roll call vote, I told them specifically the reason for the roll call vote is I want to know who's willing to stand up for the Constitution and who isn't. And the people that are not willing to stand up for the Constitution of the NALC should not be on the executive council of the NALC when we have a chance to vote in 2026. So they were forewarned, and they know that there's, that people are going to be aware of their vote and there's going to be consequences. I just want that conversation to be like, if you're in Region 10, ask Sean how he voted. If he's not willing to tell you, I'll tell you, no problem. But I think that's a conversation you should be having with your elected representative. But it's not a big deal. I'll tell anyone how someone voted because, like I said, they were forewarned that this was going to be public knowledge, and it definitely will be public knowledge before we get a chance to vote for our representatives in 2026. So,
Okay. I guess that'd be the first thing. The only other question that I'd have is the same question that I asked James when he was on here, and Corey when they were on here not too long ago. Was that we're going to be putting up some resolutions. The first one being, and they're basically all going to be geared towards limiting the authority of the president. First and foremost, putting up a resolution that would limit the possibility that a president can bring up a tentative agreement that he was the sole authority on when it comes to negotiating the terms of that. without executive council approval. Would you be in favor for something like that?
Yes.
Sweet. All right. Well, thanks again, brother. Appreciate you coming down to San Antonio. Sorry I wasn't able to meet you, but I live about 20 some
So
miles.
you
from
were
the
sick
Union.
that day or something, right?
Yeah. Well, I was out with I had a staph infection, so I was out for a while. So I was on Zoom, but
I'll see you in Austin. I'll see you in Austin,
I
brother.
I will see you in Austin, brother. I will see you in Austin. It's good to see you again, brother. Thank you so much for everything that you do, and I'm glad to see you again, brother. You have a good one.
All right, you too, man. Thanks.
All right, we got Rick. Rick, you there?
How we doing, John?
There we go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you good. Branch?
I just want to let everybody know, I just sent an email off to Nicole Ryan asking for a copy of all full resolutions from each of the past 3 conventions and a copy of all financial expenditures for any type of security of President Renfroe, past or present, and what expenditures were used for legal defense or litigation of any type on behalf of President Renfroe dating back to the beginning of his tenure. So, and Nicole usually answers me within a day or two because I think she's one of the people up at the National that deserve our benefit of the doubt and our support because, at least for me personally, she's anytime I've asked her for anything and asked questions, she's gotten right back to me.
She's definitely one of the hardest working people in our union, for sure, brother.
Yeah. And I did ask her if the email wasn't a proper avenue to request it, what would be the proper avenue to do so?
Right.
Victoria Sawicki, you're up next. Go for it.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone. Hi, Mike. I have
Hello.
a question. Because I'm a bottom-up kind of gal and I really value the rank and file above all else. And I know the APWU has a rank and file committee. And when there's a tentative agreement, it has to go to the rank and file committee. What would you propose, or how can you guarantee that the rank and file has a huge say in what is even sent out to the membership to vote for a tentative agreement? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, Vicky, it's a good question. So we put forth, me in my branch, branch 11 in Chicago, we put forth an amendment to the Constitution at the 2024 convention. And so we had some discussion and debate about how we wanted to word it. And we ended up saying that the president will, oversee the collective bargaining process and they'll utilize the members of the executive council either in person or debrief them every step of the way, during that process. And we thought about the idea of the rank and file committee, but we said, you know what, the members of the executive council are elected by the members. I mean, if you're going to have a rank and file committee, where are you going to get them from? Who's going to choose them? Are you going to have your elected representatives just choose the rank and file members? Are you going to have a separate election for the rank and file members? So that just seemed too confusing for us. So we just said, okay, let's make sure that the elected representatives of the union, the members of the executive council, are present or debriefed throughout the collective bargaining process. So that was our resolution in 24. We lost the resolution actually on the floor. But if we probably do a similar one, or maybe somebody else puts forth different resolutions, I think they'll pass this time in 2026.
Can I rebut?
Yeah, go ahead. And by all
Okay.
means, if you feel otherwise,
I
get
do.
with your branch and submit a different kind of
Well,
resolution.
our branch, don't even go to my branch, branch 214. I mean,
I'm going there.
we
I'll be there. I'll be there next month, Vicky.
okay, well, I'll see you then. But the thing is, the executive board just had a vote, and it was 11-14, and I don't have much confidence in the executive board. I'm going to urge you, as confusing as it may be, that us together, figure out a way so that the rank and file, and we have to figure out a fair way to elect rank and file members at large or something, so that we have that voice articulated when it comes to what's being sent out to the membership. Because right now the executive board, forget it. I mean, it's not gonna. We need the rank and file. That's my point. And if we've got to figure it out, however confusing it may be, we need to figure it out. That's so. What do you have to say? Sorry.
No, I like I said, there's maybe a better formulation for it. And as far as your point about the rank and file, I think the rank and file should be the leadership of the union. I just do not like, and I will do everything in my power to change this dynamic where there's like leaders and union officials, and then there's like letter carriers and members of the union, and the two are like in separate camps. I think that's ludicrous. We're a union of letter carriers, and the rank and file should be running this union. And so anything we can do in the Constitution to affect that type of change, I would be in favor of.
I love that. I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, cool. I'm gonna do Rudy from Puerto Rico, and then I'm gonna jump back in with some questions. And I don't know how long Karif wants to stay on this, but I have some tough questions for Karif.
We're on Central Time over here, so
It's 10 o'clock on my side. All right, Rudy.
What time is it in Puerto
How you doing,
Rico?
Murphy? Yes, I'm from Puerto Rico. Hi, first time talking to you. Well, my biggest concern, like everybody else, is taking out Renfroe, right? But my issue right now is that on my station, I have 4 people that already quitted the union dues to Renfroe. I wanted to do a letter. Yeah, I wanted to do a letter from my branch asking the council for Renfroe resignation, right? But she told me like, oh well, get more people. I tried to get more people on Discord and everything, but they say, oh well, those are like bad question, like tricky questions, But I wanted to know how many people already have resigned their union dues, and if we could do a survey, because I already asked the people that quitted from my station, and they told me like, well, Renfroe being Renfroe there is my way to say, hey, I'm quitting because of him, I'm out because of him, because they're not doing their job. So how can we promote, like, before more people get out for his resignation, if that's like a motive for his resignation?
I hate to call on Brother Groskopf again, but I know his branch just recently wrote a letter. Maybe he can talk about that process, and he called for the President Renfroe to resign.
Yeah. So again, as the president of Branch 3, Buffalo, Western New York, I'm hearing a lot of things that a lot of the carriers on this call, are saying as far as frustration on the workroom floor, the threats to get out of the union, things like that. We've handled it a little bit of a different way here in Buffalo.
Okay.
We had our union meeting on Tuesday, and one of the carriers stood up and they wanted to craft a letter to Renfroe asking for his resignation for multiple reasons. So during that meeting, we put that letter together. The motion was seconded, and the question was called for, and the letter was put together. I threw that together on letterhead, and then 2 days later, I had that off in the mail and sent via email to President Renfroe, asking him to respond to my membership, about him being asked to resign immediately for the reasons given in that letter. And, a lot of them were just basically the betrayal of, letter carriers across this country. He is not bargaining in our best interests. He did not listen, to the membership with that ratification vote. And that seems to be a general theme, across the country. So, listen, when you tell 804 of my members in Western New York to pound sand, that's cool, because in 2026 we're gonna throw that son of a bitch right out of the sandbox.
Absolutely.
Question. Now, can we make those letters spread around the country to do it on any branch? Because we can promote to do a motion with that letter on other branches, so more branches can unite and get a like seeing how many branches already have filed that motion.
Hey man, put your email address in the chat. I'm sure Brother Groskopf will send you a copy. I know he posted on different. So it's the letters out there, so we can use that as a template, or people can come up with their own, whatever. But yeah, I'm sure that's no problem.
Okay, that was my biggest concern because right now I want to remove. Well, my priority is try to remove Renfroe and Barner. I also asked about can we put charges on Barner to be an accomplice because he was the one also promoting the tentative agreement, like it was the best way, And I heard, I don't know. They say that everything comes to Renfroe, not to Barner.
Well, the constitutional duties of collective bargaining went to President Renfroe. The charges that Brother Rivera put forth, the charging party had charges against EVP Paul Barner regarding some of his duties regarding collective bargaining and some of his duties regarding reporting to the membership. So that's certainly a viable option if there's once again, charges are based on violations of the Constitution and or derelict of duty. So if you can identify those things and you want to bring those charges against that particular officer, whether it be President Renfroe or Executive Vice President Paul Barner, you definitely can do that under the Constitution.
Okay. There's a question that I want to ask you, but I don't know. But
you shy? Come on, man.
Just ask. Yeah.
Let's go, brother.
It's hard to it. Is that because we know that you were with the CLC, right? And then, now you're not, and you went apart. Why?
It's a long story. I don't know if we want to get into it tonight.
We know the story. We know much.
If you know the story, why are you asking?
Because we want to hear your part very well about why.
The short answer is we had a disagreement about who we think the candidate for president should be, and I think that's.
Diantre, se rompió.
No sé.
Bótala ya.
Dile que nos espere un tantito. That's an important decision that we need to make as a union, and I want us to be able to make that decision as members of the union, and that decision not be dictated to us by a small group or any type of faction of the membership. So I just don't agree with that in principle, and we have that disagreement. We agree on some things, we disagree on some things, and that's where we're at right now.
But the concern of us is about splitting the votes.
Yeah, so
at this point, there's no way. At this point, there's no way there could be a split. Like Renfroe's base is completely. He's the one splitting the vote. He's the third. He's the third candidate at this point. Like anyone that thinks Cariff is the third candidate at this point is not paying attention. But that's the question. Then you should be asking Renfroe, right? Like Elliot said, like why doesn't Renfroe step down? Because he's the spoiler. Like his base is gone, as we just saw with the executive council. So in my view, my whole view of this whole spoiler thing is just a waste of effort and time and energy when we should be actually mobilizing our base to actually vote, because 50% of the NALC membership didn't even vote. And here we are talking about trying to be like, are you going to be a spoiler? Where we should be actually talking to our members on why they didn't vote. So like if someone wants to vote for Cariff, let them vote for Cariff, because the other thing is we got to make sure these people vote for the trustees. We have David Groskopf, we have John Cruz as trustee candidates. We got to make sure these people get in, because it's not just about electing a new president, as we saw with UAW. UAW elected Sean Fain, and everyone's like, oh, this is great, but they had internal politics where the old guard fought tooth and nail against Sean Fain. They had to spend 3 years trying to vote these people out. But yeah, like my whole thing is, if people want to know about what happened with Cariff and the CLC, Cariff came on our episode a couple of months ago and he talked about it. And so I would advise people just to go back.
I wrote a whole letter. It's on the
Yeah, they
website.
did.
You know,
At this point with my podcast, I don't want to talk about it anymore because right now I view it as that Renfroe is the splitting. It right now it's Henry versus Cariff, and that is very democratic.
Yeah, everybody's
Like I would be great. I would be happy if there was 10 fucking candidates. Like we need more new faces and more new blood there. So I'm just ending this whole thing with this whole CLC Cariff thing because I don't want that toxicity on my podcast. Because one of the things going forward I want to propose is for Cariff and Henry actually to come on as a joint fundraiser to do not a debate but a question and answers. Say like members donate $20 and we split that 50-50 into both things and they get to ask a question. Because right now we're up against the status quo.
Great idea.
It is a good idea. And that's the thing, like people keep bashing this, but like we need to understand that Renfroe is not done yet. He has Paul Barner. He has the status quo of the NBAs. And they're going to go around they have already gone around to selling this TA. If you break down the TA, some of these big branches voted in favor of the TA. And you could kind of guess why they voted in favor of the TA. And it's not because they're stupid, it's because they were influenced. So going forward, I want my podcast. It's not just mine, it's Capone's and Chris's, but I want our podcast to be about the next generation. And I want to eventually get to the point where James Henry comes on here with Mike Cariff and people donate like $20, $10, and we split it 50-50. That way they both benefit from it and they both answer the same question. Because in my mind, Renfroe his base is done.
Yeah.
So this whole that just to answer your question, because I'm not dragging this on, because it's already 10 o'clock and I'm fucking exhausted. So I'm gonna end with David. His hands up. Do you have any words of motivation and inspiring insight?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the CLC and Mike Caraff. I'm a president of 25th largest branch in the country. And I got Mike Caraff coming to my meeting next month to talk about running for president. That's how fair I am, not only as a letter carrier, but as a union advocate, and a president. I know, I'm 53 years old. I've got 33 years in the post office. I am one of the original establishment OG rabble rousers in the NALC. Mike Caraff and the CLC, we're not enemies. We're on the same side of this reform movement. We're trying to make things better. Like Mike said, do we agree on everything? Absolutely not. But the way we treat each other is extremely important. And that's what I'm trying to show here, not only as a president of my own branch, but hopefully as a future trustee, for you guys nationwide that listen, I like Mike, right? That's his slogan. I like Mike. I got no issue with Mike. You can ask Mike. He's on the call right now. Me and Mike aren't at each other's throats. Mike gets to come to my meeting, and I'll tell you right now, I've had I'll just characterize them as in-depth conversations with some of the other folks on the CLC about why I'm doing that. And why I'm doing that is very simple. My membership deserves the right to hear from all the individuals that are running for president. And if that's James Henry, and if that's Mike Caraff, and if that's Brian Renfroe, all three of those men will get an invitation to come to my branch and speak. Now, that goddamn yellow-bellied coward from down south, he ain't going to show up. But the other two gentlemen, they're going to be there, and that's what my membership deserves. They deserve to hear firsthand what these men have to say about leading this union into the future. And if you know anything about me, I'm a fan of competition. I'm not scared of it. As far as I'm concerned, no disrespect to Mike, but man, when you're coming to my house, you better be ready to go.
I love it. I love it.
That's how it works. Competition is good. This shit where you're, pulling people up through the system and through the ladder, because they got both of their lips on somebody's ass. That's why we got ourselves in this position, ladies and gentlemen. The reason we're in this position is because we've allowed politicians and not freaking warriors to run this union. And there are people out there that think, Mike's, what the hell they call you, Mike, a hoodlum or whatever?
Hoodlum, yeah.
They're calling Carafe a hoodlum. They call it, they think I'm crazy. Some of my own people is branch. I'm a prick. But that's what you need. The labor movement has never garnered anything by playing nice. The labor movement hasn't garnered anything by having a great relationship with management. How did we get that stuff? We went out there and fought tooth and nail, and in some instance, people died so I could take a lunch during the day. And people don't understand this anymore. They just think like the guy was saying with the seatbelt thing. Oh, do you really want to do that? Do you really want to make management mad? Let's cut a deal. You want to go fucking play? Let's make a deal, man. Go call Monty Hall and get the hell out of my way. But my only point here was this is how we should treat each other. Not disrespect Mike Carafe, not me as a branch president going, hey, even though I'm on the CLC and I support James Henry, I do everything I can to harm Mike Carafe or keep him out of the spotlight or keep him away from my membership. That's bullshit, man. May the best man or woman win, and that's the way it should work.
Absolutely, man. I love that and I appreciate it.
I'll finish up, and hopefully Capone's still here. He might be showering. He just got home from work, I believe.
I'm still here.
All right. So Carafe is always welcome. He hit me up last night. I was grocery shopping. He was like, "Hey, can I come on this weekend?" And I was like, "All right, cool." So Chris is at a wedding. Hopefully he does not show up. So Carafe is always welcome to come back on. So if anyone has any more questions, save them. So I'm going to ask questions, a couple of questions, and I'll leave it with Capone. One of my questions is, do you, I guess the COP, you had Melissa Rakestrom down there. She's in your region, and she was berated by NALC President Renfroe. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there, but and I don't think there's a transcript, but according to her notes and what other people said, he called her a liar, and she's like, "Are you calling me a liar, or are you calling the arbitrator a liar? Because all I'm doing is reading from the actual award." But I don't know. I think that look, I don't want to draw too much of a conclusion on it because I wasn't there, and maybe there's some context there, but I think that there is certainly this disdain for your average member, and there's this anger toward, or this defensive posture that the president gets into when someone challenges him, specifically when someone challenges the veracity of what he's saying. So I don't feel that that's appropriate from the president. I don't feel that the president has treated members of the executive council appropriately. So I think that's a big problem with who he is as a person, and that's something that probably is going to be best dealt with by not electing him as our representative anymore. He's the face of the entire NALC, and to get up there and talk that way to a president and a member of the union is just completely unacceptable.
All right, cool. And then while she was just on our last episode.
Yeah, I heard the whole thing, man.
So May 1st is International Workers' Day.
You're trying to beat brother Corey Walton on length of episodes here.
Yeah, no, this is going on too long. So May 1st is International Workers' Day. Where are you going to be?
It's funny. I'm going to be in Santa Fe. I have a campaign stop in Santa Fe, but that's not until no, actually, I won't be in. There's a big march in Chicago, which we're helping out as far as looking for sponsorship and making people aware. It's on a Thursday, but I wish I was going to be there. But I had already made plans to go to Santa Fe, and I didn't want to break it. It's funny because when I was talking with the president in Santa Fe, we were kind of doing the scheduling, and she's like, we have our meeting on the first Thursday, and I'm like, May Day, she said May 1st, and I'm like, that's May Day, and she said She said, "Yeah, that's fine." I'm like, "All right." This was about 3 months ago, so I'd already made that commitment. But yeah, no, I'm coming from Chicago. I know the whole history of Haymarket and May Day being the international. When I was I lived in Mexico City for a while, and May Day is huge all around the world, and it's crazy because it started right in my hometown of Chicago, and traditionally, although recently the Chicago Federation of Labor has kind of picked it up a little bit more than in the past, but you go back a few years and there was not very little celebration of May Day or the International Workers' Day in the city where it started, which was Chicago. So, but I'll be with my people in spirit on that day for sure. Sorry I can't make it.
We've asked you this question last time you were on. When you become president, or if you become president, with the current attacks towards immigrants, trans, and the oppressed, should the NALC dedicate resources, members, and funds towards standing with these marginalized communities, as we're currently seeing the current administration, which is Trump and the ruling class, is going after with ICE rounding up immigrants that are actually labor organizers? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the last time you asked me, you couched it with, if the AFL-CIO had some type of program that, we're part of the AFL-CIO, obviously. But, we should work with, the way I answered it last time, and I'll answer it this time, is that, all of the issues out there for the people in the communities that we serve are our issues. We're essential members of these communities. And, we're there to make sure that this country that we serve is the country that we want it to be. So, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, when you talk about expending resources and things like that, that's up to the members of the union. But as far as our position and our principles, it has to be standing with the people that are dealing with different issues and are not being either treated right or represented right or whatever. The letter carriers of America stand with you. That has to be our position.
All right, cool. I have one last question. I'll let Capone wrap up. I just mentioned a few minutes ago, one of the visions I have for this podcast is to have you and James Henry come on together and answer questions, and have members donate, say $20, and we just split it 10 and 10, $10 for the CLC and $10 for your campaign. Would you be on board with a live stream type of Q&A, not a debate, but mostly just answering questions from the members?
Oh yeah, man, that sounds like fun. It sounds like fun, and we do got to do some fundraising. So I'm a big yes on that one.
Cool, thank you, Capone. You can finish up. I'm all done. Thank you, Karif, and thank you everyone for joining us. Capone's gonna wrap up.
So I did want to say thank you, Mike Karif, for coming on. Comes on quite a bit. You're welcome on anytime. Groskopf, I met you at the convention. You are a complete badass. You're welcome. We would love to have you on at any point as well. And along with what he said about both sides, anybody on the executive council or at any of those levels that would like to come on, we'd love to hear those sides. It is all about communicating and getting the information out and hearing all sides and working towards a common goal. What we should have is a common goal. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And yeah, we got to start getting those resolutions out. Learn your constitution, learn how to do an amendment, learn how to do a resolution. If you want to change your union, that is the way to do it. You can yell as much as you want at a brick wall. It ain't going to do nothing. That's the way to get this stuff done. So please learn your constitution, learn your resolutions, learn your amendments.
Actually, before we wrap up, is Stephanie here? Does she want to come on and talk about the president's meeting? This is going to be a long episode. I don't know if people are going to listen to it by Tuesday, but if Stephanie's here, let her hop on for a few minutes while there's still a dozen people. All right, Stephanie, the floor is yours. After that, I'm just going to end it. So
sounds good. We're exhausted too. So Tuesday is the president's Zoom meeting for this special convention. It's to brainstorm. It's pretty much taking the place of what CO is supposed to be, where everyone can chat and get everything out.